Yeah, sorry. I'll conclude by encouraging the attendees to participate with an increasing number in all discussions. I wish everyone a fruitful conference. I will be starting, just give me a minute. We are also going live on Facebook. So just give me 2 minutes. I'll just quickly go live here. Our first speaker for the day is a person who doesn't need any introduction, especially from me. So despite that, it gives me an immense pleasure to introduce her to you, all the attendees. She is a retired professor from the Department of Psychology and the University of Delhi with a doctorate in clinical psychology. She is a recipient of the Best Educationist Award by Raja Ram Mohan Rai Foundation. She is also been conferred with the Lifetime Achievement Award by Indraprastha College, Delhi University in the field of clinical psychology, and Global Award for the Excellence in Psychology by Global Indian Congress, San Francisco. She is none other than Dr. Aruna Bruta. Ma'am, over to you now.
I first will say that it's not knowledge sharing. I think we are equally puzzled in the situation in which we are today. And I think today's conference should be sharing our ideas, sharing our vows, sharing our doubts, what's going to happen, and how are the children going to take all this today. So I will be speaking on resilience particularly, because I wonder how children are going to develop resilience. So I took up this topic with Nazirji, who very gracefully, acknowledged the freedom to choose the topic, and I'm very grateful to him for really giving me this kind of freedom and the opportunity to share with such lovely people from Frame University and O.P. Jindal University, Mohan Kumarji, and everybody else. My topic for today will be that resilience and positivity for success in the changing educational scene. Now, this is very important for me because everybody is wondering what is happening in the current scene when everybody is at home and parents are at home. School has come home through the internet, and children are on their mobiles all the time, or maybe their tabs and laptops, etc. And therefore, I take this opportunity of discussing the role of resilience and the maintenance of resilience and positivity for something called success, which is the buzzword today in the changing education scene. So I think this is what I want to talk about. But I'll give you where I got this idea from. I'll give you some verbal protocols from children where
Sorry to interrupt in between, but your video is not coming.
I have started using a PPT right now, so you don't have to see me. First,
okay, so there is no PPT also.
There isn't. Okay, 1 second. Give me a second. नहीं आ रहा अभी तो आ रहा था जब आप कर रहा था I'm sorry for the delay. Please forgive me.
Oh, no, it's totally fine, ma'am. These are technical glitches out of our control.
What I wanted to share with you during my video counseling sessions today, that children themselves are wondering, is this going to be forever, the online classes? And are we never going to go back to school? Well, I pray that we will go back to school, and I pray that we will be back into the classroom situation. I pray that we will be back into the playground, and I am quite sure that we will be in our art rooms and hobby rooms, etc. Can you see the PPT now?
Yes, ma'am, it is there.
Okay, so I have collected some verbal protocols and see what the kids are talking. Those were good days, when we were out of the house. And those were good days in the school bus. We would fight for the window seat only to push ourselves out of sleepiness and become alert. This is one student who's suffering from depression, who's come to me for counseling. We do video counseling these days. Another one. Those were good old days when we were out of our parents' constant nagging. Now we are with them day and night, with their work from home and their meetings. Mother's temper while getting tired, and father's temper to maintain silence during his meetings. They should be sent to jail. Note what the children are saying. They should be sent to jail so that someone else could also shout at them. And I think that it's what the kids are saying. Now these online classes, the students are still talking. You can hear the teacher. This is a student mentioning, but you cannot snatch the pen from your neighbor's hand to tease him. You cannot kick or push the guy sitting in front of you. You cannot throw the chalk on the teacher while she has her back towards us when writing on the board. You cannot be naughty. How can you be serious all the time? It's so boring and it's so tiring, So I think that we need to look what's going to happen. This is one side of the house talking, and these are the kids. The other side is the dad who says, look at the new education policy, says dad. Then he says that children will have to study for one more year. So a female student comments, how nice. Then my father will marry me off after one more year. One more year I will have mom and the maid to do all my work. After marriage, I would have to work or slog the way my mother does, besides her own office work. If my husband behaves like my dad, doing no household, I will kill him or leave him. I do not study to work for my husband. I am not as foolish as my mother. I will have my own life. The whole day my mother sulks and cribs. Of what use is this education? This is a female student who has been cribbing before me in her sessions. So these are the beliefs and attitudes of children, or you can call them students, towards studies, towards marriage, and towards the seriousness of a career. Look at their beliefs. What are they observing from the home environment? So will there be resilience? Will there be positivity without sports and without creativity in the virtual methods of education? Right? Now, if you're going to talk like that, I think I need to first clarify what is the concept of resilience. We're using this word. Could be consistency, could be persistence, could be taking things right till the end, follow-ups. But as a psychologist, I would also say ego strength, not ego strength, the willpower, the zest, sahanshilta. This will include positivity by itself. It's a very common saying for resilience. If you fall 7 times, get up 8 times. So what does it say? It says persistence, perseverance, and in the colloquial bhasha, lage raho munna bhai. I think this gives us a lot of idea what we are in terms of the word resilience. Now look at the concept of the word Success. This is the most hyped word you will find in the world of today. Concept of success in education, particularly, what are the parents harping on? The teachers harping on marks, 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 cracking entrance test and entrance exams. Therefore, material success, I think, topping the boards and showing to the social world, achieving a high position in a multinational organization, taking foreign trips, wearing high-end branded clothes and their accessories. Really, is that success? Well, maybe, I think. That's what you make me think. Will that give us resilience? I wonder sometimes. Resilience and success, what will be the role of family and school, and maybe a virtual school? I can't say for how long. My question arises today for our viewers, for our participants, for our speakers. Are parents having resilience? You know, I'm constantly coming back to you all again and again that family is the first community where children pick up their learnings, where children have role models from their parents and other significant family members. Therefore, I constantly, talk about parents and parenting. And I say, are parents really having resilience? Are they fighting and debating on their own persistence, patience, consistency, their own willpower, their own maturity towards each other, towards handling issues in life, towards handling home problems, towards children's issues, towards their mother and their wife, God knows what, but they're constantly arguing with each other. Is there resilience, and what are the children watching? Parents must undergo a test of resilience to know their score. I'm now talking of some solutions because I hope you have understood. Parent is the first role model for their child. It is not the actors, it is not Bollywood, it is not Hollywood, it is none of the models, it is none of the advertisements. Parents are the most powerful models for their children. And if they are going to be short-tempered, if they are not showing patience, they lack resilience, they refuse to accept it though. In parenting workshops, they say, no, we are the most ideal parents. Or some of them will accept it and say, acha, hamari baat chhod do na. Forget us, talk about our children. So they want a perfect picture in their child. That's their picture, their painting. But to give them some concrete reality, I again repeat, parents must undergo a test of resilience to know their own score, where they stand. It's very eye-opening and very introspective. I had a test. I had a test of resilience. I can't show this. Okay, maybe towards the end I might show a little. We have a test. Bhuta Saab is also a psychologist, and he's more of a psychometrician. So he uses this test even in multinationals and corporates, where every adult must know what is his level of resilience, so that the counseling could be framed accordingly. Parents, therefore, this is for their benefit. Parents are role models, as I have said. Therefore, parents' own language at home influences a child's language. Parents' participation with children will influence the development of resilience in children. Are parents participatory? I see a lot of restlessness in parents when they are even participating with children over games, over carom board, over ludo, over TT, over badminton, whatever you can do, indoor games. Even if it comes to playing antakshari, you can see a sense of impatience in them. The reason being, खत्म करो ना आप जल्दी, मुझे अपना काम करना है, अपना, right? So children will also do this the same way they are with their homework, with their readings. They want to cut short and become a hero without putting in the hard work. Parents' own usage of mobile phones. This is very important. I'm sorry, there's a spelling error there. I've missed out on the B mobile phones, and children pick up from there, and therefore I would say a mental disease that has come up in children, a behavioral disorder or a behavior pattern, if you're very sensitive to the word disease and behavior disorder. A pattern of using telephones, mobile phones, is the time they spend playing games, chatting, watching internet, maybe pornography. Yesterday, I had a parent calling me and saying, is it okay for my 12-year-old daughter to start looking at a site that shows only kissing scenes? What should I do? I said that when you are watching a movie, are the children around? And she said yes. And I said, when there is an intimate scene, what do you do? I change the channel. So the children's curiosity is going to be there. So they will be on these sites. Children are addicted to games like PUBG, etc. And if we don't monitor them logically with patience, I think we've got a problem at hand. What to talk of resilience? The question doesn't arise. Therefore, what should be done? I think it is for all of us to think what we can do. I think Nasir ji has created a forum for all of us that we should meet, we should talk. Go back to, if I can see them now, can I see Alma and the other participants and talk to them? Can you get them on?
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
I want to say one more thing, that
yes,
I want today's debate to be very participatory, because we've got at the school level, we have at the university level people addressing us. This is a very serious issue coming up with students, whether we are back into school or we are on the virtual school. But the impact and the participation of parents, their language use, their use of mobile and the children's use of mobile, we need to interact and understand, can we come out with some possibilities or some suggestions that we can give to schools which could be followed as a disciplinary norm, within the school. So this is very important. I'm grateful to Nasir ji, Alma also, for this opportunity. And I'm looking forward to listening to everybody else in the room. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much. So if you have any questions, all the attendees, you can definitely put in your questions in Q&A box. I can see one question from Dr. Ahmed. He says, as the schools may restart in September, should the parents send the children to schools? If yes, which all precautions parents should take?
I'm sure you're going to get an answer, and a better one, from the school as well as from the government, as well as from CBSC. What will be the guidelines of each school? What will be the method of class? And will there be social and physical distancing? I wonder. And I also think the only thing that will work is the mask. And I worry, like you are asking this question, I worry, what is the role of the mask when children go out to play in the play field, because they are going to hyperventilate over there, they're going to get breathless. Should they be on mask? What's going to happen? I don't think anyone has the answer. The answer is वक्त बताएगा, experience बताएगा, जब हम field पे होंगे तब कुछ हमें समझ में आएगी कि बच्चों के साथ कैसे करना है. But I am really surprised when you say that सितंबर में स्कूल खुल रहे हैं. मुझे तो कोई उम्मीद नहीं है कि सितंबर में स्कूल खुल जाए. ईश्वर करे अच्छा ही हो. And since the recovery rate is very high, so stop looking at it as a deadly disease or something like that. We've overcome the deadliness at least. That is very important to understand.
So we have one more question from Simran. She says, till we are going with virtual learning, how to tackle students' problem?
अब ये तो बड़ा वेग क्वेश्चन है, बिकॉज स्टूडेंट्स की तो 1 करोड़ प्रॉब्लम्स तो मैं ही बता दूंगी आपको. एंड हाउ टू हैंडल देम, वन फंडा इज वेरी क्लियर. यू योरसेल्फ हैव टू बी पॉजिटिव. You yourself have to be very sorted, and for heaven's sake, don't forget your childhood before you start scolding and shouting at the child. I don't think scoldings and shoutings are that impressive in behavior modification as logical reasoning and praise and positive reinforcement. This is very important. Also, try to understand why a child is what he is. Is he hyperactive? Does he have attention deficit? Does he have some learning disability? Is he slow in his work? Is he an observer of a lot of mess in the house? God knows what he's bringing from the house, what thought process. So always refer the child to your school counselor, and for heaven's sake, please make it a mission to walk to your principal as well as to CBSC that we should have more counselors per school. I have no personal interest in all this, but if you really want to benefit a child, the child needs to have a counselor. The parents need to have a counselor.
So next question is from Vineet Gandhi. He says, how do we reduce the mobile usage for kids in these days, especially with the recent online mode?
That is precisely what I was talking about towards the end of my presentation. That can you imagine how parents are using their mobile? I've seen mothers say, okay, do your work, I'm sitting here, and she is busy doing something. The child is doing his work in his notebook, and with half an eye, looking at what the mother is involved in. And the mother is also involved in either one of the games or porno. I don't know. I have many parents like this coming for counseling. I have seen fathers doing this. So I think that parent counseling is a very important tool that we can use. Unfortunately, schools do parent counseling workshops only in the beginning of the session once. Can you change anybody like that? You can't. It has to be every month. The parent should be mandatory for him to come, keep listening, and he will change. He will modify his behavior gradually. You know the common saying, most adults never grow up. So they also need to be, geared and guided how to be a parent. Are we matured enough to be parents? वो तो हम देखते नहीं हैं. बस दुनिया को दिखाना है कि हमारी शादी होगी, हमारे बच्चे. Therefore, we are fine as a married couple. So this is how we have children. Therefore, we don't have this concept of maturity. Where are we going to talk about resilience? This is very important.
So I think this is the last question I can take before we'll move on to our next speaker. So Payal says, how can we develop resilience and how can we be positive and confident?
I think the confidence comes from self-concept. Okay. And the self-concept is positive if parenting has been positive. Do you know a very common verbal protocol of parents is, तू रहने दे, तेरे बस की नहीं है, मैं कर देती हूँ या मैं कर देता हूँ. तू रहने दे, तेरे बस की नहीं है, तेरी बहन कर देगी या तेरा भाई कर देगा, you know. And what are you telling the child? तेरे बस की नहीं है, right? So this is a self which is non-confident from there. पता नहीं कहाँ से हमारी फैमिली में पैदा हुआ, हम सारे तो गोरे चिट्टे हैं, ये कलुआ पता नहीं कहाँ से आया. Look at the self concept. ये इतना मोटा है, कितनी बार बोलते थे कि दूध कम दे, तुम्हारी माँ ने मुझे तंग कर दिया कह के कि बच्चे को दूध पिला. They are arguing, fighting, and the child is listening. I am the bone of contention. My plumpness, my fattiness is the bone of contention. So there is a negative self-concept. I do wish to recognize what I am today to my Guruji, who is Carl Rogers, who was the founder of the School of Counseling. And he wrote a very old book, but please look at the reference. The self on the shelf means you're non-functional. Why are you non-functional? Because you're negative about your own self. You self-beat, you self-abuse, you self-condemn. So I think this sense of self-rejection comes from early childhood comments, what the family has been saying to you. Over and above that, if you have been teased, if you have been bullied, if you have been scolded by teachers using wrong verbal protocols. Alma, मैं एक मिनट लूंगी आपको बताने के लिए.
Definitely, ma'am.
I am not the least embarrassed at the age of 77 that I still think I am a duffer in maths and science. And चूंकि मुझे maths and science नहीं आता, मैं duffer हूँ. क्योंकि मेरी teacher ने class 4 में भी बोला और class 8 में भी बोला, Aruna Dutt, you are a duffer. You don't know science and maths. What are you going to do in life? Right? One of my brothers would also say the same. So it was ingrained that I am not good enough because I don't know science and maths. Therefore, I will never be able to achieve anything in life. आपने introduce करते वक्त कहा she doesn't need any introduction, ये वो. मैं सोचूं किसके बारे में बोल रही है, मैं तो डफर हूँ. So these kind of statements, this kind of negativity should always be refrained from while parenting and growing our children as well as our students. We should be very careful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Very thoughtful and very informative. So now moving on to our next speaker. So I would say he is a Dean of the Office of International Affairs and Global Initiatives at OP Jindal Global University. He had an outstanding career in Indian Foreign Services lasting 36 years. He has been India's ambassador to France and India's ambassador to Kingdom of Bahrain. He was also the lead negotiator first at GATT, that is General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, and then at the WTO, that is World Trade Organization. He was leading member of India's delegation at the WTO ministerial conferences held in Marrakesh, Seattle, and Doha. He also holds Masters in Business Administration from Faculty of Management Studies, Delhi University, and Doctorate from Sciences of Pio University, Paris. He has also authored a book entitled Negotiation Dynamics of WTO, an Insider's Account, published by Palgrave Macmillan. I would like to invite Dr. Mohan Kumar, Professor Dr. Mohan Kumar. Sir, over to you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
So thank you very much. I want to thank ICAE for this opportunity. I think it's fantastic to be addressing people, and I was very fascinated by what Dr. Aruna had to say just now. So I hope to stay on a little bit and listen to others as well. Can you do me a favor? Diplomats love the sound of their own voices. So can you tell me 5 minutes before that I should stop so that I can conclude right?
Yes, definitely, definitely, sir.
Yeah, just remind me in 5 minutes before my time is up, okay?
Yes, yes,
Thank you
definitely.
very much. I just want to talk about, obviously my intervention will be on higher education. So I want to make that clear to your audience that I will be addressing the concept of higher education. So the concept of higher education and how that is changing. Second, the landscape of education in the world, thanks to COVID and so on. And finally, some lessons for India. So this is going to be the three-part talk, if you like, and I'm happy to take questions towards the end. So the concept of education, I think what I did was, instead of going from theory to practice, my career has been in the opposite direction. So I spent 36 years, as you said, being a diplomat, and I'm now a professor of diplomatic practice. So I bring a practical perspective, if you like, but I also learn every day along with my colleagues. So the first point I would like to make is that, and it's much more true for your generation, and I'm looking at the moderator, myself and Dr. Aruna belong to a different generation. I'm 63, so we are in a different generation, but for you, I think you are never going to stop learning. So that is the first advice I have for your audience. If you want to stop learning, become a panwala in front of Maurya Sheraton, sell pan and make 1,000 rupees a day, 2,000 rupees a day and be happy. But if you want to be in any other profession, you need to not stop learning. You are dead if you stop learning. And that is what I tell civil servants and diplomats, because there is this feeling that if you crack the UPSC exam, you have arrived. And then you don't need to learn anything at all. And that is, I think, an extremely wrong presumption. So that's the first point I want to make. The second point I want to make is that I think what we are trying to do in top universities like OP Jindal University, but also I'm aware of what universities do abroad. I did my doctorate from Sciences Po in Paris, which is a very good academic institution. It's not learning per se. It is learning to learn, if you know what I mean. That is more important for the next generation. You should be able to learn all sorts of things. I mean, at my age, I'm trying to understand what universities do with each other, collaboration, online learning. I had to do a course in Coursera in order to understand how to do online learning. I mean, at 63, I get a pension. I should be sitting at home eating aloo paratha and masala dosa every day, right? So I don't know what I'm doing, but I love what I'm doing. So the point I'm making is learning to learn is much more important than learning per se, particularly because I tell my students quite honestly, I don't know what jobs are going to exist in 10, 15 years' time. Nobody has a clue, frankly. So how do you teach someone, and what skills do you teach when you just simply don't know what job they are going to do? An 18-year-old student today has no idea what he's going to do at 30 years old. When I was 18, I had a good idea that I wanted to join the civil service. And then, as my wife keeps reminding me, I married the foreign service for 36 years. Now, that is not going to happen to anybody else. Younger people are going to keep changing jobs. So learning to learn, for me, is much more important than just learning. Of course, you have to learn, but I think the more important skill is learning to learn, I think. The second is not what you learn, but how you learn. That is more important for me. What you learn will keep changing, you know. I'm one of those who started in the foreign service with something called cyclo-style, which young people don't even know these days. Then we moved to fax. Then we moved to mobile phone. I was very excited when I got a mobile phone, 10 kilos weight and this big. And then we moved on. So I've seen the entire change in technology and how it impacted diplomacy. So I think that what is important really is not what you are learning, but how you are learning. And if you can learn the proper way, you will find it much easier to learn new tricks as you go along. Last important skill that we try to teach in higher education institutions is the critical thinking skill. And for me, that is the most important. If I am hiring somebody for the post of a CEO, and if you come and tell me you are an IIT graduate, it really doesn't matter to me whether you came first in the class or last in the class. As Dr. Aruna eloquently said, you know, we load the child with so many of these things, cracking the exam, and that is not important. If I'm looking to recruit somebody, I would look at two things, maybe three. One is critical thinking, and I will explain what I mean by critical thinking skills presently. The second thing is he or she a team player? Can you work with others? That's the most important skill. If there is anything that I have learned in 36 years working for the government, it's that. If you cannot work with others, the only job you can do is, I go back to my panwala. You can sell pan, and even there you have to get along with your customers, frankly. But then otherwise, you just sit in front of a laptop and just do software code. That's the only job you can do, where you're not bothered about interacting with others. The most important skill is to get work out of others, working with others. And I think being a team player is extremely important. Then critical thinking skills, as I said. And finally, if you do not empathize with people with whom you are working, not sympathize, but empathize, if you know what I mean, then it makes no sense. You will not be considered a leader. A leader in India most often demands respect. I always tell people that leaders should command respect, not demand it. I cannot come to you and say, hey, I am dean, therefore you have to respect me. You're not going to respect me if I'm dean. But I should be able to command your respect with knowledge, with compassion, and with a certain degree of empathy. And that's really the point I wanted to make. For critical thinking skills, if I can just spend a couple of minutes on it, and students keep asking me, what do you mean by critical thinking skills? Critical thinking skills, we have now realized, is actually a process, and it can be acquired. You're not born with critical thinking skills. It has to be acquired. So what is this process? The process begins first with information. On any issue, you need as much information as possible. So don't pretend by starting that I know everything, so I don't need any more information. That is the first step for a disastrous pathway. If you think you know everything, you're lost. So first thing is, you have to gather information. We encourage students to use multiple sources of information, since we live, unfortunately, in an era of post-truth information world, of fake news and so on. You need multiple sources of information. Never believe one source of information. As ambassador of India in Paris, I used to tell my French people, don't believe the Indian embassy. Cross-check if you want. Because otherwise, you see, the problem is, if as Indian embassy, I put out information, they think it is prejudiced because I speak for the government of India. So I always tell them, please cross-check. I have no problem with that. So you increase credibility by relying on multiple sources of information, and that is important. The third thing you do is do independent cross-verification. There is no harm in it. Students should do it. All of us should do it. So if somebody tells you something about what is going on in a particular state, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, get in touch with people, with different people. And multiple independent verification is crucial for information. So much for information. Once you have the information, the most important attribute when it comes to critical thinking skills is to give weight to information. So how much weight do you give information? So you have government. How much weight do you give? I don't expect you to give 100%, but at least give 50%. It's after all the government of India telling you, as Dr. Aruna said, do you want the children to go back to school? Rely on the government, at least to the extent of 50 to 60%. Talk to others who matter. There are activists, there are websites, there are excellent websites now available. There are newspapers, there are journals. So I think giving weight to information is something that you need to do. If there is an opposition activist who says something about the government, you will have to give some weight. But as long as you understand where they are coming from, I think that's fine. So give weight to information. And finally, the most important attribute of critical thinking, can you come to an informed judgment all by yourself on the basis of whatever I have said, which is independent verification, multiple sources of information, and giving weight to information. So when there was this issue of, migrant labor issue, when we had the COVID crisis, a lot of students came to me and said, listen, what is going on? We didn't even know in Delhi that there were so many poor people who are homeless. So I said, good, I'm glad you know now. So give some weight to information from different sources. Go see for yourself, independent verification, and come to a balanced judgment all by yourself. You need not like everything the government does, but try to understand the constraints within which government is operating. So to cut a long story short, if you do an undergraduate degree or a postgraduate degree, frankly, whatever you learn is fine. And I think we have exams, end of the term exams, continuous assessment to evaluate you. But if you cannot come out of Jindal, IIT, Delhi University with this ability to think critically, then I think, frankly, that your education has been of no value, frankly. That means you've just got hold of a guide, you mug up your stuff, you regurgitate what you learn, and then you get your 90% and get on with life. So this critical thinking is something that is not easy, because it is a rigorous process that you need to enforce every time. I tell my students, frankly, don't listen to your parents always. Try to cross-verify. That's okay, Your parents can be accepted, whatever they say can be accepted for certain things. But if they make a comment on Hindutva, you don't have to accept it. You do your own homework. You do your own background check. So critical thinking for me is going to be the most important component in higher education in the future. And that will determine whether you succeed or not in the knowledge economy. Because education is the only passport for success in a country like India, because, if you belong to a lower middle class family or a middle class family, the only thing by which you can be upwardly mobile is education. If you don't have, a big amount of wealth which is going to be given by your parents, and if you're not into acting, or if you're not into sports, IPL, the only thing that can really get you is education. So in India, the issues of access, affordability, and diversity becomes extremely important in the higher education scheme of things. This is going to become increasingly important. And I'm glad the national education policy, which has just been announced by the government of India, we think in Jindal and in other universities, we've analyzed this. We think that this is a step in the right direction. I think it's a brilliant policy document. We will have to see how it is implemented, and that is key. And that is key to this policy. But this national education policy, and I'll spend a couple of minutes on it if you allow me. One, there is this tendency, especially in the south of India, where I come from, that everybody has got to be an engineer. As Dr. Aruna was saying, mathematics, science, and STEM is so important that everything else is unimportant. So I'm proud and glad to tell you that there is a return to liberal education in India. Because we have so many engineers, and engineers are not always employable. Some of them are, but not all of them are employable. So there is a return to liberal education, and liberal education is important because liberal education is what enables you to see the big picture, to do critical thinking. You see, I sometimes go to the Foreign Service Institute to talk to people who have just joined the civil service. I see a clear difference between engineers and non-engineers. For an engineer, 2 plus 2 can only be 4. For a liberal arts graduate, you never know. You know, you can give free rein to your imagination. 2 plus 2 can be something else. And I want that something else, because real life is not 2 plus 2 equals 4. Real life is complicated. Real life is messy. Real life is uncertain. And the most important quality that you need when you join the civil service or the foreign service, can you make a decision based on incomplete information within a very short period of time? You're not going to have all the information at your disposal in real life. And decisions are never between good, bad, right, wrong. Decisions are like the one the government of India is facing now. What do you do with Chinese products or Chinese apps? It's a difficult decision because you're also hurting yourself when you try to say we are not going to use Chinese products and services. But then these are the kind of decisions that policymakers face. That is, you have two undesirable courses of action. You have to choose the one which is least undesirable. You know what I'm saying? Both are bad. Real life is not about good and bad. Real life is two bad decisions. But can you choose the one which is less bad for you? That is what you need. And for that, you need critical thinking. Do you want to signal to me 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
Yes. So if you want me to include the questions in your coloquy, we can do that. Or if you want to take the questions after your session.
So maybe I'll try to wrap it up in 5 to 8 minutes. Is it okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So I like the national education policy because there is an emphasis on liberal arts. There is emphasis on flexibility. There is emphasis on vocational education. I wish I had learned either plumbing or electrical work and so on, frankly, in my life. I need it now after retirement. You know, it's fantastic that everyone will be exposed to at least one vocational education skill, because it's ridiculous if everybody, you know, I used to be India's ambassador in Bahrain, and I once went to a laundromat, as they call it, and I found there was somebody from Kerala who had done a master's course in psychology and who's doing this job. So I said, why did you do an MA? He said, because there was no choice in India. So I think we need to treat electricians, plumbers, people with vocational skills with greater dignity. And I think everybody does not have to do an engineering degree or a PA or an MA. This is a big change, and I hope this change comes in after the national education policy. My last point on the higher education, which is what we have observed in OP Jindal Global University. Broadly speaking, with very few exceptions, there are no bad students. There are only bad teachers. Be absolutely clear about it. I now see a whole lot of kids, and I'm being honest, they're all smarter than me than I was when I was 18 or 20, frankly. I was not even 50% of where they are. But if you have bad teachers, you're going to turn out bad students. So I cannot overemphasize the importance of faculty. If you ask me the importance of having a good education system, 3 reasons: teachers, teachers, teachers. Frankly, there is nothing more to it. Now, the last point on teachers, as the Singaporean leader said, if you pay peanuts, you will get monkeys. So you better pay good salaries. Otherwise, nobody is going to become a teacher. I mean, I remember in my class of MBA in 1978, the best ones wanted to join Citibank and Procter and Gamble. Some of us wanted to join the civil service, so 3 or 4 of us got into the civil service. Then some others wanted to do banking. You know, banking was a big deal those days. Tata Consultancy Services, who wanted to become teachers, people at the bottom of the class. That is ridiculous. Now that I am a professor, I realize we should be paying our professors much more. We should be encouraging toppers to become professors, because the most important job is shaping the minds of people. What could be more important than that? Why do you pay a sales manager in a company which is selling underarm deodorants more salary than a professor? It's stupid. It is stupid. So this is something we need a paradigm shift. I'm glad there are private universities and private schools which do it. But one of the things in the national education policy they must have included is this. We need to, I mean, it's okay to say, I treat my teacher with respect. Respect is fine. You know, if you've seen the old movie Diwar, you know, this guy goes back, Shashi Kapoor goes back to the home of his professor and says, you know, but then you see the home of the professor, you feel bad. You cannot do that today. So I think one of the things that we need to invest is teachers and professors. I'm going to stop here. I'd be happy to take questions if there are any. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
You can hear me. We did a research, Professor Mohan, I was just going to share with you. It's a very outdated research, but its relevance is still very true. The social image of a professor is Bechara master hai. Right? Bechara master hai. Bechari masterni hai. Bechari school teacher hai. And this is the body language. And we did this research, you will be surprised, 40 years back or 45 years back, and it is still relevant because we repeated the questionnaire and we found similar responses. So teachers should be the highest paid people in the society. Then no one thinks that you are a bechara, because you don't get becharas if you're very well paid. You will get thinkers if you are very well paid. When we were in USA studying and we had our identity card, postdoctoral for my husband and doctoral for me, and if we were to go and buy groceries, the lady would stand up and say, "Good morning, sir." You know, that is the respect over there. And when my husband's professor invited us for dinner, I saw his house and I told my husband, I said, "Krishan, tum bhi professor ho, wo bhi professor hai. Wo to Akbar hai, wo to Badshah hai." So this is the difference in India about recruitment, about selection, about giving regard to thinkers. We don't. We give regard only to solvers who are 2 jama 2 equal to 4, as you have said. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your insight. And thank you very much, sir, so much of learning today. So I'll just quickly take questions which are there in the Q&A box. So Dr. Ahmed says the level of awareness you had at the age of 18 is really appreciable. But sir, how can such awareness be created among poor section of the society?
That's a tough one. And one of the problems we are facing now is we thought that with COVID and online education, that it will be easy for everybody to join in. But what we completely, did not realize is that internet connectivity is so different in India from one region to the other, that many of these students are not able. So we have started recording our online lectures so that they can listen to it whenever they can. Frankly, the issue of disadvantaged and non-privileged sections in India getting access to quality education can happen only if you make education relatively free, at least till the school level. Every country which has succeeded, South Korea, ASEAN countries, of course, I'm not even talking about Finland and Sweden and so on, or even France for that matter. They're all absolutely model countries. But India needs to ratchet up its education spending. we need to spend a lot more on education. Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan and others you've heard of. I think we are moving. I, I, I believe we should move much faster. But the national education policy is we should not get lost in this business of language chauvinism. You know, I'm from the South, but I take a lot of pride in my Hindi. My Hindi is bloody good. So when you come and live in Chennai, I expect you to learn Tamil. Of course you should. If you're living there, and some of the best Tamil in Chennai today is spoken by IAS officers who are Sardarjis, who have come to Chennai. They speak excellent Tamil. So don't underestimate the ability of the child to master 2 or 3 languages. There is no need to focus on one language. I would say definitely mother tongue, because it's important. But once you've done your mother tongue, focus on international languages and one language. There is nothing wrong. A child can very easily learn 2 or 3 languages. So, but going back to the question, it's a tough one. It's a tough question to answer. And I think a free, quality accessibility of public education is a must if India wants to dream about a demographic dividend. You know, a demographic dividend could very easily become a demographic disaster also. We should be aware of this. And the only way this can be averted is if you are able to invest in the education of every child. You cannot afford to have any child left behind.
So moving on to our next question. Sumana Ganguly says, if in a class barely 1% become bad and 99% are good, then why blame a teacher?
Yes, that is something which is possible and conceivable. I say that because I went to Kendriya Vidyalaya. I was very proud. I was a very proud student of Kendriya Vidyalaya. Like Dr. Aruna, my experience with my mathematics teacher, by now he must be 90 years old, so I don't want to name him and shame him. But his approach was wrong. He took hold of 10 students in my class. Our class was 35. It was a good number. And the 10 students who were brilliant in maths were his favorites. And he would concentrate so much of effort making sure they got gifted in languages. I was gifted in social sciences and so on. So I would tell him that, listen, you're putting me off mathematics because constantly you're putting me down. You're constantly telling me you are number 2, you are number 3, you're not as good as the other, something which Dr. Aruna said. So the answer to the question that he has asked about the 1%, if I'm a good professor, I should focus on the 1%. I still believe, even the students who are terrible, I have discovered in OP Jindal Global University that sometimes if you talk to them, you suddenly find they're interested in sports, suddenly find they're interested in acting, suddenly find they're interested in social work. And we have some who say, I want to become a politician. So it is important for you to understand what the student's aspirations are. At least you can guide that student. You can say, okay, you don't need to top the class, but you cannot be an idiot and a politician at the same time. In your, that could have happened 20 years ago, but now politicians have to be smart as well. Politicians have to know how to use social media. They have to be able to speak 2 or 3 languages. So there is one way of motivating even the bottom 1% of the class. I really think what is important is having a conversation with the student and trying to understand the student's aspirations. So even a student who is academically weak, you can help him in many ways. That's the answer to that question.
Thank you, sir. So I'll just elaborate 2 questions here and then move on to our next speaker. So Ms. Sonia Sinha says, how to choose a postgraduate course? And Vineet Gandhi says, how do we explain in simple steps for a student to start thinking about choosing a career stream?
So that's a tough one as well. The problem, you see, our lives were simple. When I passed out, there were only 3 options. Either you write the civil services exam or you write the RBI, SBI exam. Otherwise, you tell your father, please talk to a DCM company or some Tata company, get me a job. This was the only option. In 1973, when I passed out of Kendriya Vidyalaya, this was the only option. So I took the first option. I said, "Dekho, milta hai, nahi to aur kuch kar li." That was that. But now I think the options are many. So the two-part question. The first question is what postgraduate degree to take. So India being India, the first thing you need to do is have a plan A, plan B, plan C. So I always tell students, do we have 5 minutes, madam?
Yes, definitely.
When I was almost 14 years old, my father was a principal of a college. So I'm actually going back to my father's profession now. So he always would ask the 4 children, what is your dream? So when I was 15 years old, I told him, my dream is to be a diplomat and travel. Everybody laughed on the table. And they said, Tumhe nahi milega. I said, doesn't matter. This is a dream. So my father said, this is good, but do you have a plan B? I said, my plan B is to teach like you. I said it partly to make my father happy. Because my father, actually, as Dr. Aruna says, teachers those days were not respected that much. And he suffered quite a bit. But anyway, and then my father said, what about option 3? I said, are you telling me I am unfit to be a professor? He said, no, but this is India. Please have a plan C also. Normally in other countries, you only have a plan A or a plan B. But in India, you need a plan C because kuch bhi ho sakta hai. You never know. So plan C, I said, was I wanted to read English news on Doordarshan. So my father said, yes, this is okay. You are a good debater. So ye to tumhe mil jayega. So when young students apply for universities these days, there is an American expression. First is your dream application. So you try for MIT, Caltech, Harvard, Yale. Second is aspiration. And third is certainty. So you have to do that in India. One is a complete dream. Second is aspirational. So maybe first one is Harvard. The second application could be Berkeley. And the third one could be a university anywhere in the US. I don't want to name, but a university where you are absolutely certain of joining. So when you talk of a master's course, one of the master's courses in Jindal, which is very popular, is MA DLB, Diplomacy, Law, Business. It's an excellent course, and I teach that course as well. See, if people are not sure of doing a law degree, people are also not sure of doing an MBA, but they say, we are still evaluating options. This is a good option. It combines diplomacy, law, business, and it is not a course MA in witchcraft. I'm mentioning witchcraft deliberately because there are some American universities which offer witchcraft. So if you do witchcraft, you are not sure what you're going to become. But doing an MA DLB at least makes you qualified to join a company or to go further, do a PhD, whatever. So I think the choice of an MA degree should be such that it offers you flexibility to do other things. And the last question, I think he asked about occupations. I have found that talking to people is the best. So whenever people tell me we want to join the civil service, I said, ek IAS officer se baat kar lo. You never know. Don't think the grass is always green across the fence. You think all IAS officers are fantastic and live happily ever after. No, you can be miserable sometimes. Foreign service, please talk to somebody like me. I spent 36 years in the foreign service, so I'll be able to tell you. Similarly, if you want to join Google, you may not be able to talk to Sundar Pichai, but at least talk to the Google India head and say, listen, what is it like to work in Google? This is something youngsters don't do often enough. I don't know why. Actually, I told one of my nephews, please send a message to Sundar Pichai in his Twitter handle. You never know, you may get a response also these days. It's okay. He has got MS Artificial Intelligence in Stanford, and he was not sure what to do. So I said, you please send a message. Ask him whether Google is interested in recruiting people like you. If at the most, Sundar Pichai might say, listen, I don't have my time, but I can ask my HR fellow to answer. So I think talking to people in different professions is extremely important. And that would give you an idea. But that must start very early. I find one thing I find a little bit concerning. In my generation, we were very clear. By the time you are 18, you are clear. These days, youngsters take it a little easy. So there is somebody, for example, I know, who's 27 years old, and he or she is going to take the civil service exam. 27 years in my generation, you are considered a Buddha. You know, it's already too late. You have to take the exam when you're 20 years old and join when you're 23. You can't join the civil service when you're 30 years old. That's too late. So I think talking to people is important. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Very thorough answers. Yes, ma'am.
I think if Professor Mohanji allows me to add something to the
Please.
last question, sir. MA में क्या subject लें या क्या choose करें is, as you have at the end said, is too late to ask. Were you not thinking after your 10th what to take? Why did you take it? And then even if you're, disallured and disenamored by what you took, you did do something at the BA level. And are you disillusioned at that level also, that you have the reason to ask what subjects to take at the postgraduate level? Then I, as a psychologist, will say that personality has not matched to what you have taken up so far. That means, one, decision making is not clear with you, and there are a lot of issues with conflict management. And I'll also say, when we do career development, career choices with students, right from 10th, 12th, again at the BA level, again at the postgraduate level, again at the career choice level, where to work, where not to work, etc., we definitely look into, have you never had a dream what I want to be? And if that is impractical, you have not attained any success in it, have you not made it practical? सपने को practical बनाओगे तो goal बनेगा. Goal को बनाओगे तो aims and objectives बनेंगे. So I think at the postgraduate level, one reason why probably Mohanji is also much younger than me, I would say हम इसलिए भी clear थे, हमारे time में options इतनी ज़्यादा नहीं थी. आजकल बच्चे confused हैं because options बहुत ज़्यादा हैं, and parents से pressure बहुत ज़्यादा है for that concept of success that I have mentioned. Will this take me to the US or not? Will this give me a 10-figure salary or not? I have put in so many man hours in my studies, I must get a return of a take home which should be in 10 or 12 figures. So हम बहुत जल्दी आसमान छूना चाहते हैं, only materially. आप दिल से क्या करना चाहते हो, that should help you कि आप MA में क्या लेना चाहते हो. So try to sort your personality and your dreams and your practicality. You will know what to do and what to join. This is very important. That is why I was enamored by Professor Mohanji, because when he says critical thinking, तो आपकी critical thinking तो तभी होगी if you are not a blind follower, but you are moving towards leadership. Then you can take independent decisions. पर अगर आप blindly, a lot of people tell me, I ask them, आप engineer दिल से हो? नहीं, पापा ने कहा था. आप doctor दिल से हो? नहीं, दादा ने कहा था. That's why you're not giving the right medicine, because अपने दिल से तो आप doctor हो ही नहीं. आप तो दादू के सपने पूरे कर रहे हो. So आप में critical thinking नहीं है, and that is what we need to develop. That is very important. So maybe the last question that was asked, I was talking a lot around it.
Thank you very much. Thank you both of you for your insights. So moving on to our next speaker. She is an associate professor of sociology at Flame University and has a doctoral degree in sociology. in the field of sociology of art. She has her to credit several research papers published in peer-reviewed national and international journals, as well as chapters in edited books. She has also published a book called The World of Contemporary Fine Arts: An Exploration in Sociology of Art. She has received the Best Presentation Award in an international conference held in Washington, D.C., and the Best Research Paper Award at an international conference on women empowerment, Global Perspective in India, 2003. She is Dr. Poonam Gandhi. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you so much, Almas, for the introduction. And thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be amongst principals, teachers, counselors. So I believe, Almas, the audience here is chiefly comprising of principals and teachers?
Yes, principals, teachers, counselors from across the country.
Okay, across the country. Thank you so much. Yeah. I am going to share my screen. Just Almas, let me know if you can actually see it once I share it. Is it visible? All right. I'm going to, in fact, talk about higher education, just like Dr. Mohan, and it really is exciting because Dr. Aruna as well as Dr. Mohan have already touched upon a few things that I'm going to talk about, and it's a pleasure to share my thoughts on this particular theme of higher education in the post-COVID world. It's a Flame University perspective because as you all know, and for those who don't know, Flame University is our pioneers in liberal education. So Dr. Mohan did mention about liberal education as the way forward. So it just gives me immense pleasure to be sharing my thoughts on in this particular conference, virtual conference. So let me just tell you what the flow of my talk is going to be like. And I will, of course, just briefly touch upon the introduction and then also briefly try and maybe discuss the challenges that education faces in this uncertain time, as well as the post-COVID time is what is it that we are looking forward to. And the focus will be, of course, on the post-COVID world, or what we should emphasize on going ahead or going forward. Let me begin by, so the presentation or the points are just, bare minimum that I wanted to put down so that I can cover, and I do cover all the points that I have, that I wish to share with you. So, we all have been experiencing how the pandemic has impacted the world, in a very radical manner. It has changed our lives radically. And among many sectors, the higher education sector too is undergoing a tectonic shift, I would say. And all of us have questions about what the future of educational institutions is going to be. The pandemic, of course, has transformed the centuries-old chalk and talk teaching model to the one which is now driven by technology, which is link and click. So you and I mean, I'm a teacher, though I'm teaching in a higher education, and most of you as principals and teachers would have experienced this. Many educational technologists had forecasted that technology will become the biggest intermediary of teaching learning processes. And we are seeing that today, when we have to actually talk to the screens, just like now we're talking to a screen, and hoping all of you are listening or are thinking of questions that you have in mind. And we are grappling with the sudden new norm of completely tech-mediated teaching learning platforms. However, is this the future of the education? Okay, a question which was raised by Dr. Aruna that students are asking: is this how it's going to be forever? Are we going to go back to classrooms? The questions which teachers would have in mind, and principals again you would have in mind, is will mindsets, attitudes, skills have to change completely to embrace this new norm? Well, we have actually learned a lot in the process of trying to ensure that our students get education. And in a way, we have embraced it. We are trying and learning the various platforms, the various modes that are there, the online remote teaching learning platform, which has now become a new normal, as they say. Well, the global economic impact is evident. We can see that in reports and studies which are focusing on how the uncertainty has been unleashed, right? And how do we as teachers, principals, facilitators or counselors find answers to the questions about how education is going to be, and questions which parents and students will raise. What are the challenges in the world today? Interestingly, most of us who are actually at this virtual conference are digital immigrants, born in an era when we did not know the sea of computers or the eye of internet. And we are discussing the future of digital natives who are born in an era of computers, internet, artificial intelligence, bots. So the challenge is for us as educators to embrace the system that addresses the demands of the present and the future. So what are these challenges? I'm sure most of you are aware of what the challenges are. The sudden transitioning into a remote teaching learning model has definitely tested us. We were not really expecting to teach a screen with photographs of students, or with alphabets telling us which student is attending, or sometimes even with videos on the kind of experiences that we've had. I'm sure that you all will agree that in-person classes have major advantages. Having experienced what it is like to teach remotely, and with the online classes or the online interaction that is happening, how much of interaction is happening, right, between teachers and students? We know that the interaction has declined, because I'm sure all of you, just like I feel, I get a sense of excitement every time I'm going to enter a classroom. I deliver the content, but I'm looking forward to actually listening to the students, understanding the kind of questions they have in their minds. Sometimes the challenges that they pose when they question us. So in this kind of platform, the remote platform, all this is limited, and we know that. Also, what about the rigor of assessment? What about the transparency, in evaluating students? There are debates around this as well when it comes to a remote platform. So, do we have answers to that? Well, I believe we will together try and see if we can answer some of these questions that are there. Many students have raised issues related to non-contextual delivery, especially in a platform like this, an online platform. I believe that the context is a key factor in success, because delivering just the content should never be our aim. And juxtaposing or just trying to transpose, not juxtapose, but transpose classroom to a digital kind of a platform is definitely not the solution, or even just blind replication that does not really help us in achieving the objectives of teaching, the objectives of the courses that we are delivering. The other challenge that we all know is the kind of difficulties that we have when it comes to teaching and studying from home. Becoming digital definitely has its shares of issues, as pointed out earlier as well. Right from electricity to Wi-Fi connectivity, which is the basic requirement. When it comes to, if we are planning to migrate from a conventional kind of educational system to a technologically driven education, then this is bare minimum. And in a country like ours, we all know that we have a long, long way to go when it comes to electricity, or when it comes to Wi-Fi connectivity for everyone. So I think that these challenges have opened up for us, various questions, and we are all trying together in this, trying to answer them. The other thing which I think we should reflect, and we definitely should try and understand, is the diversity among students, especially in a higher education kind of a system, where the collective identity of the students in a class actually helps us gauge the delivery or the level at which a particular course is going to be delivered. And is this possible on a remote platform where the student-teacher interaction is limited? It is going to be difficult because we are not seeing them, their faces. We don't know if they've understood. So all of these are challenges which you and I both know. The other challenge is this whole limited peer interaction that students are having. As Dr. Aruna has already pointed out, in the initial part of her presentation, where students are saying, I can't do so many things. I can't, tease my classmate. I can't actually nudge them. So the students are all isolated in their own homes, and the diverse classroom experience is definitely missing. Peer interaction is limited, okay? And the vibrancy of a classroom, which in-person classrooms that all of us have experienced, is again missing. But I'm hoping that, of course, in the near future, we would very soon go, and have in-person classes. This pandemic has, of course, posed unforeseeable challenges, but at the same time, I do believe that it has unlocked immense possibilities and opportunities, right? The challenge now is to learn from the current situation, to reflect, to innovate, wherein student-centric learning is the focus. And I hope that when we do have the in-person classes soon, we will not be able to go back to our conventional forms of teaching, learning. We will be engaging with these platforms that we have learned in the process of delivery. And we will create a new age kind of learning environment. Now, when I say we will, I'm hoping that, together, whether it's school, it's high school, it's higher education, together the reflection is already happening. Teachers, these kinds of conferences, conclaves, virtual interactions are helping us. I'm sure we will learn much more from each other. Now, like I said, the focus of my talk is going to be on the way forward, the flame perspective to higher education in a post-COVID world. Now, post-COVID world does give me hope of a classroom kind of a setting, a physical space, a physical interaction in terms of in-person delivery. But what is important is there has to be willingness to engage in alternative educational pathways. And it has to be an amalgamation of technological tools with in-person pedagogical tools. So tech-mediated teaching, learning cannot completely replace the hands-on, in-person interaction amongst teachers and students. I strongly believe that. So blended learning or blended teaching and learning is the future to the education, right? Is a future education pathway, I would say. And I'm sure there are other sessions following mine where they are going to talk of blended teaching learning. So what is blended teaching learning? I'm sure you all know that it is a style of education in which the students learn via electronic platforms, online media, as well as the traditional modes or the traditional face-to-face teaching that happens. So when using the blended kind of teaching and learning, we are keeping in mind uh, that the aim is to combine the strengths of both the traditional and the online teaching learning methods in order to give the learners an experience, augmented experience, and also for as teachers to be able to use all the skills, the platforms that we have in this COVID situation. So through the blended format, we'll take advantage, I think we should take advantage of best of both the worlds. And so that's the first one. So efficacy in teaching and learning is possible through blended formats, is what I believe. The second, which I've mentioned here, is the outcome-based education. So improving the quality of education requires reflection from a student's perspective, which directs us to the chief question in delivery of any course: what are the learning outcomes? At Flame University, all our courses, in fact, are designed keeping the learning outcomes at the core, and we evolve our pedagogical strategies and practices around it. But outcome-based education is the future, as also highlighted by the University Grants Commission, right? So this education is garnered towards student-centric learning, and in today's hyper-competitive world, accelerating learning in a new is the new kind of a dominant driver for success. We as teachers, as instructors, have to keep the student-centric learning at the core. And if we do that, then it will become possible for us to blend the remote kind of platforms or the online resources that we have with our in-person classroom teaching. So that's the second one. The third, which I have put down, which I think is extremely important and crucial, is experiential learning. A key question that arose during this lockdown was, how do we ensure that students have an experiential learning, where they immerse? So it's not just, the bookish kind of knowledge, but educational institutions which are known as, these knowledge building kind of centers. But higher education, I believe, should focus on application of the knowledge, should focus on the real world experiences that students eventually will have to have, the work life that they will enter into, right? I'd like to pick up a quote by John Brown, who co-authored a new culture of learning. So allow me to just read that. Universities must shift from simply transferring knowledge to students to providing them with access to the latest knowledge via digital platform, developing their skill sets through mentorship, and then immersing them in situations that encourage them to probe and push the boundaries of current knowledge and practices. So when we look at this particular aspect of immersing them in situations, okay, ensuring that they are able to learn through their immersive experience, the post-COVID world, experiential learning will be very, very important, because like us, the students too have gone through something which is different, which has been new. And now for them to enter into that real world, just classroom will not suffice. So immersion in projects, real life problems and situations, practical knowledge and skills were, of course, highly relevant in the past and will remain so. So internships that our students take up, research projects that our students take up, all of this leads to a well-rounded education. And all the more in a post-COVID kind of a world, if we want to prepare our students to this world of uncertainty, then experiential learning can or should be, especially for the higher education institutions, it should be a very, very important component. I believe many have suggested or would suggest that the loss of practical, immersive, hands-on training can be compensated by training through simulations. And when we say simulations, we're talking of imitation of the real life, imitation of certain kinds of games, certain kinds of things which will ensure that students learn, but it is not the real life, right? So those simulations can be used to enhance learning. They would support learning, yet they do not replace the experiential learning that students have to undergo. So students, especially let's say in the sciences, they are sitting in at their homes. They're missing out on the laboratory experience, the physical laboratory, right? We have students in the social sciences who are expected to go out in the communities and interact with people, research, because that is exactly where they will learn the most. That is missing. But in a post-COVID world, hopefully, when we go back to interacting and physical distancing is no more the norm, I believe that experiential learning will be a key to higher education as well. And I'm sure that a lot of the higher education institutions are already emphasizing on it. So like...
sorry to interrupt you, ma'am. Can I take one question? Someone is raising a hand.
Sure.
Yeah, so Tessie, if you can unmute yourself and... can you hear me, Tessie? So I'll just read out one question.
Sure.
Yeah, so Ms. Rita Singh says, when we talk, because you were getting onto holistic development, this is the question, I guess. So when we talk of science, we mention only engineers and doctors. Why not areas of application of science like research and pure sciences? How many discoveries has been done by Indians in India? How can we encourage this as counselors and teachers? And what is the role of private universities in this field?
Okay. Okay. So there's a lot of things that have been said here. I've just said that when it comes to in the sciences, the laboratory experiences which are important. For social sciences, it would be the community going out within the groups, which is important. So right now, under a physical distancing kind of norms and the lockdown kind of norms, we are unable to do that. But in the post-COVID world, hopefully we go back to that and emphasize on the fact that learning, especially higher education, learning can happen not just in the classroom, but of course, in the world, the real world settings. So not particularly just sciences. I'm talking about all fields. Yeah, that's. I hope I've answered that.
Yeah. So Tessie, if you want to ask something, you can unmute yourself and you can.
And
ask
also, I think she asked about. So I'll just touch upon the various. Sure. Ahead. I'm sure she'll get some answers, and I'm willing to take the questions after that.
Yes, definitely.
That work? All right. So yeah, moving on to the holistic development aspect. So I've already talked about the blended learning, the experience, the outcome-based education. I've talked about the experiential learning, immersive experience, which is important. I'm now moving to the holistic development, which I'm sure all of the teachers, principals are aware that we do talk about it. We do have it on paper, isn't it? We talk about holistic development of our students. But I strongly believe that campus life prepares the student to enter into the real world. Diversity builds a sense of community, it builds a sense of connectedness. Students learn to negotiate, to kind of maneuver through the campus life. So campus life includes interactions, face-to-face interactions, in-person interactions. And this is not something that you learn in a classroom. You will learn on the go. You will learn it when you are interacting with your peers. So a well-rounded and effective educational practices are required for any kind of capacity building that we're talking of. And for that, the students should be equipped with the following, what's on the screen, the following, in order to face and be successful in a post-COVID-19 world. I'm happy that Dr. Mohan has already spoken a lot about critical thinking. That was the first attribute, which I think is extremely important. Critical thinking, problem solving, right? Given that in classroom simulations or in classroom discussions are one thing which will help, but actual problem solving, taking a real life problem and expecting the students in a higher education setting to try and come up with solutions. Analytical reasoning is extremely important. Teamwork, already touched upon earlier by Dr. Mohan, right? Reflective thinking, reflecting higher order thinking, multicultural competence, leadership qualities, ethical awareness, human values, all of these are important attributes. And higher education, so these are also attributes that liberal education talks of or emphasizes on. And through our pedagogy, through our courses, we ensure that some of these are interwoven in some of the courses, whereas some of these are actual courses that we offer, mandatory courses that we offer at our university, like critical thinking. You have also public speaking. We have environmental awareness through a course. So all of these are preparing students for a future which is uncertain, I would say. And even if you try and inculcate some of these through some of the classes, I think to have a holistic development, all of these are extremely important. One is to have a very specialized niche education in a particular field, a degree, but the other, which is extremely crucial, depends on all of these important attributes that students should have. And liberal education, in fact, emphasizes on all of this. And education will be incomplete if students don't have these attributes as they go ahead and they move towards the future. Hence, developing these skills are important. So developing some of these skills are extremely important for employability, for productivity, health, and well-being in the decades to come. And that's where I would move towards a very important thing, and Dr. Aruna has already touched upon it: mental well-being. Higher educations can no more just say that we are going to offer degrees. They will have to be responsible also for the mental well-being of the students. So in the current pandemic situation, I'm sure as teachers you've experienced the anxiety, the state of the fear, the uncertainty that students have maybe expressed or students have been experiencing, and the effects may continue even after we move in a post-COVID kind of a world. So educational institutions will have to extend a supportive hand to the students and help improve their emotional mental well-being, which is a very important aspect when it comes to education and overall rounded kind of an education. So providing psychological support will have to be taken up by higher education as well, and be responsible to ensure that the health and well-being of students is taken care of. So that's an important aspect. The other, which the last two that I'm going to emphasize on is multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary. again, these are liberal education components that we have in our liberal education. A unidisciplinary approach will not equip our students to deal with the obsolescence, to deal with the uncertainty, or the accelerated pace of development that we see today. Right. In fact, a multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary approach, it will pave the way to meet the demands of the dynamic world. Therefore, the higher education institutions have to be multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary. Then the last, though there are several, but I've just kind of wanted to mention a few that I think are important. And the last is adaptability. The picture that you see on the slide, I'm sure some of you have received a WhatsApp, or WhatsApp message with this particular picture, which is a story of Choluteca Bridge in Honduras. So if for those of you who have not read it, this particular bridge was built with state-of-the-art technology to withstand any kind of a hurricane. However, this bridge became completely redundant as the river flowing under it changed its course due to the massive hurricane. And the bridge, of course, stood the test of this massive, devastating hurricane. But as you can see in the picture here, the river has changed its course. And the roads which connected the bridge have also disappeared. So we too are going through unpredictable kind of times, and we need to be adaptable. If education needs to be relevant in all times, right? Higher education needs to prepare the students for the unknown, prepare students for the unpredictable, and therefore have a wider horizon. So just like Dr. Mohan has mentioned about
sorry to interrupt, ma'am, but
yeah.
I guess we are running out of time on your presentation. Yeah.
Yes, so this is just the last bit that I'm just moving towards the conclusion. So finally, what we need to do is teach students to adapt. Okay, and I believe that the higher education can interweave this aspect to it. So let me just end by saying, just kind of wrapping up. So efficacy in teaching and learning is of course possible through blended formats. Whether we are moving from chalk and talk to link and click, well, I think it's a blend of chalk and click that we will need to have. And it has to be a student-centric kind of an education that we're looking at. We also need to be able to upskill and reskill. So not just the students, for us as teachers, also learn new things we already are learning, but we also need to upskill and upgrade our own knowledge. To sum up, with the focus of cultivating certain habits of learning, critical thinking, analytical skills, holistic and multidisciplinary education, good citizenship, liberal education, in fact, seeks to hedge the danger of the conventional mode of teaching learning, and ensures that the students become relevant in the present and the future times. So finally, I just one last bit, and that is about the new educational policy of 2020. This is exactly what the new educational policy of 2020 highlights. All the elements of liberal education. It is the policy is almost like liberal artization of the education system. And this is a new term which is coined by our dean of the university, because we can see in the policy almost everything that we are doing as liberal arts or liberal education institutions, the policy has recommended all of them. So it's a very, very positive move, and like mentioned, let's see how it's implemented. But for higher education, this is the path, and this is where we need to move. I've tried to kind of put everything in a nutshell, tried to share all my thoughts. So questions, more than happy to take the questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you, ma'am. Very, very informative presentation from your side. So I think I took the questions, and let's see anyone raising the hand now. So I'll just take a quick 2 minutes break, and we will be back with my co-host also. And as you all can see, Usha ma'am has also joined us. And hello ma'am. So we will be starting with her session. Just a 2 minute break and we'll be back. So stay with us, please. So I guess I have got the request from the attendees to start with Usha ma'am's session. They are waiting, eagerly waiting for her. So I'll just quickly give a short introduction for her. So as you all know, she's the founder director of Career Smart and a nationally respected TV personality and a documentary filmmaker. And she has pioneered her career counseling on television for 20 years with two widely acclaimed TV series. And she also continues to conduct personal career counseling sessions and write comment on educational career related issues. She will be talking on transferable skills today. So ma'am, over to you. Ma'am, please unmute yourself, ma'am. Usha ma'am, please unmute yourself. You are on mute. Yes, yes.
Hello, good morning.
Yes,
and I would say it's nice to be here again, Almas, and good wishes to all my fellow panelists. Yes, today I've been listening to some of the panelists speaking, and I must say lots of ideas coming up, and I think it's wonderful to have sessions like this in which we can share some of the thoughts that are coming through, because basically we're addressing the students I would call the school leavers, those who are completing class 12 and looking for college education, some who may be even in college and looking at what their prospects will be after that. This current situation has posed a lot of challenges. And I must say, for many students, I'm always admiring how well many students have taken it in their stride and are, adapting so well to the changed circumstances. But broadly, I can see two major challenges that we are facing right now. One is the COVID pandemic challenge, and the second is the new education policy that has just come out, and for which, again, there are many challenges because we have to adapt and see how does that fit in for many of us. Okay, briefly, I'll just talk about the COVID, though we tend to mention it earlier in many sessions, but more because we're talking about transferable skills, and what better time to look at those skills as now, when we need to look differently at the skills that are required for us to move forward. For many students who are waiting for either for completing their competitive exams or waiting for admission procedures and way in which they can get their applications through, things have changed. And a lot of things have changed because courses that you may have thought of and wanted to do. Either it's difficult to get into, or you've not had the exam for admission, or you just may have thought that maybe that's not the way forward. Maybe you want to do something else. So I think the important thing when we look at skills is really to start looking at what am I going to do with the course of whichever I have chosen, and how is the way forward. I think that is very important to look at, because what has certainly changed is that there are many sectors today that are showing a slowdown. Any sector in which there are a lot of people interaction has not only changed, but the way in which the interaction is going to happen has changed. So this mostly affects, like, say, the hospitality, the entertainment sector, the travel aviation sector. They're transformed, and therefore the skills required would be transformed. But there are also additional opportunities, and I think there are many more of those additional opportunities coming up, because young people can now look at huge opportunities in the area of science. I heard an earlier question where students were talking about, not in science, we just don't look at engineering and medicine. We're looking at healthcare in a larger platform. Pharma, how does that affect all the research work, all the application areas of science, the IT areas? Online education itself is changing, and I think there itself it's presenting a huge number of opportunities. The web technology, financial services, banking. So I think there are, for many students, these are the routes, the courses, the challenges that you need to look at, and then see, okay, which course am I going to do? What are the skills that I need for that? So broadly, as I said, what does the changed COVID circumstances show? A changed scenario of the future. Even though we know that we're going to get over this in due course, but there will be certain protocols that may remain in place. And therefore, that we have to look at those sectors as being transformed. The second challenge for many students is the new education policy. And how does it affect many students? Really, because now the assessment standards are likely to be changed. We don't know exactly many of the details, but they will be changed. The exam system is going to change. And therefore, what is required may not be just the marks, but maybe other ways in which those skills and whatever your learning outcomes are being assessed. This is going to be the new norm. And I think we need to prepare for how are we preparing ourselves for those kind of assessments. The other thing which I feel is a wonderful area and looks and really opens up a lot of opportunities is the huge number of vocational courses and opportunities. Now that vocational education is going to be given such a huge impetus, I think for many students, because there are many students who cannot make it to those very high cutoffs of 99% and 100% of which even students get. But there may be really good students who are getting good marks and may not be strongly academically inclined. For them, there are going to be major opportunities in the vocational sector. And I think we need to do, because we in an economy, we're going to need many more of those technical skills rather than the very high academic skills. In fact, many of the factories today and the manufacturing areas say they don't want engineers. They've got more than enough engineers. They're really looking at technical, supervisory, skilled personnel. So also in many other sectors, particularly in areas like the hospitality, the web technology area, the IT area, the finance, all the backup for the finance technology, all those areas will also require people with very good skills. So here, where and what skills are we looking at? Basically, there are many skills that you need. The most important really are, I would say, technical skills. By technical skills, I don't mean just engineering skills, but today everybody is on the computer or looking at digital technologies. The digital medium is going to be our new normal. communication is through digital. Our way of gathering information is digital. The way in which we even present, like we're doing this program today, is digital. So I think everyone will need to get onto that digital platform and know the skills required for that. You don't need to be an IT engineer. You don't need to be a software developer. You just need to get basic digital skills, and particularly areas in which will service your sector. So you want to be a good banker, look at the skills that are needed for auditing, for taxation. Those are the kind of IT skills you would need to pick up. You're becoming a designer. Again, you would need skills that help you to develop design on a computer-aided system. So all of these are the technical skills, very important. This is the time, if you have free time, this is the time to pick it up. You don't need to go to a special college to do it. You can do it either online classes, you can do it through short computer classes. This is a very important. The second area of skills is, I would say, communication skills. Broadly, huge amount of communication. Now the communication systems have changed. We no longer just talk like this. Very often we have to talk, where earlier it was a large part of it was body language. Now, if you're wearing a mask, very often you cannot see body language. How do you know who you're talking to and how do you convey things to another person? And particularly in areas of teaching or marketing, that body language in communication is very important. So you have to find other ways of communicating. And now the social media has come up with huge number of ways, and digital marketing is indicating how those systems are working out. So both oral, written communication, written is going to be much more important because a large part of oral is currently being constrained, but written communication will be there. So communication is again a very, very strong point of transferable skills. And there are many others. You've got to bring leadership, teamwork, reliability, like others were talking earlier, ability to think out of the box. All of those will be very important. But I would say, if I were to just choose the three, one was technical, communication, and the third would be a learning base. Build your knowledge as long as you can. Your knowledge is not just for passing an exam. Even 10 years from now, if somebody were to talk to you about what you learned in your class, you should remember it, because that learning is for life. And this is where I think we tend to fault in our rote system, because we learn by heart, spew it out on the exam time, and then forget about it after that. And I have many colleagues and professors in university who tell me that, very often the students tell me, ma'am, we've forgotten that, or sir, we can't remember what we learned. We just learned it. We did the exam and you've got your 98, 99%. Not good enough for life. After all, now you're going to skill yourself for a career. So basically, what I would say in conclusion, my advice to students is, first, don't rush into any course. Earlier, it was a given. You did science, you had to do either medical or engineering. No. Think again. Is that course going to deliver you to the career that you wanted to get into? Is that your final goal? If it isn't, is that goal going to provide you a job 2 years, 5 years down the line? Yes or no? If not, please think again. Nothing today is a given. Like we were saying earlier, you have to adapt. So adapt. You may be good at science. There are many, many other careers that you can look at. You may be good in commerce. Look at many other options that you have, rather than rushing into the one you may have thought of because everybody was going there and you felt that that's what you had to do. So first, don't rush into your course. Second, look at your undergraduate studies as your base. Whatever you do, whatever career you get into, it's going to be at the postgraduate level. Remember that, because you have to do your postgraduate, particularly those who are going into a degree program. So do with gets you a solid base. If you're going into a management, looking at finance, do a BCom or a BA economics, which will give you that base. Maybe a specialized BBA. If you're going into engineering where you want to get into robotics or something like that, do a base in IT or mechanical. You will then specialize. If you don't know what you want to do, and there are many students like that, then you can still look at doing a base in whatever is your favorite subject or what you're good at, and using that 3 years time to then explore the options. Who are the places that I would like to do? Do I still want to be a lawyer? Do I want to get into management? Do I want to get into hospitality? Try it out in your summer holidays. Get some work experience and explore whatever jobs and opportunities are available. And of course, finally, pick up those skills. And when I say skills, like I said, the digital skills important, your attitude to work, very important, and more important because you have to learn, you have to adapt, and you have to be positive about the future. And finally, I will say what every student should do, and many are faltering, particularly because this is an unusual time for many people, is in terms of time management. Discipline yourself. These are not holidays. You may have online classes, and after that, it's not a time to binge watching Netflix movies or social media. This is a time to pick up. This is valuable time. So use it fruitfully. Find out as much as you can about what you want to do, how you want to do it, what are the prospects in that. This is the time to explore, build your skills, and work towards. We don't know what the future will hold for us, but we need to be prepared. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It was always a pleasure listening to you.
Thank
There's
you.
one question for you. Nandini Shukla says, is it necessary to have a 2-year work experience before one does a post-graduation?
Not necessary, but always advisable. More because a lot of our courses do not give us that opportunity to pick up that work experience. Nowadays, there are courses, and I think now under the new education policy, they're going to introduce internships as being a part of every undergraduate program. Some already have them, but if you don't, this is a good time to find out whether what you want to do is actually the way in which you look at it. Work experience always helps. It gives you a chance to assess your suitability for that job. It helps you to see the work environment in which you will be working, and also gives you the experience of then being able to focus on where and what you want to do for your postgraduate level.
Okay. So if you have any...
Okay, so Nandini, always suitable to do at least a 2-year work experience. And if you're applying for an MBA, actually most MBA institutes require at least a 2-year undergraduate work experience after undergraduation.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, Nandini says thank you for your answer. So if you have any other question for ma'am, you can drop in your question in Q&A box. Then we'll move on to our next speaker. So I guess that was it. So now I hand the session over to my co-host, Ms. Astha Mahajan. He's a career counselor of DPS Mathura Road. So Astha, over to you now.
Thank you, Almaz. Thank you. And you're doing a wonderful job the way you are coordinating with everyone. Uh,
Thank you, Asa.
a very good afternoon, Usha ma'am. It's good to see you after long, Dr. Neeta Bali,
Thank you.
who is the principal
Thank you.
head, GD Goenka World School. Ma'am, I have attended your sessions earlier, both of you. Wonderful, Miss Shalini also. Good afternoon, ma'am. And it's a pleasure hosting you here today. And so many listeners can get inspired and enlightened with your kind words, with your knowledge, with your expertise, with your experience. And I'm truly honored to welcome you all here. Thank you, Usha, ma'am, for sharing the transferable skills that are required by students. They really need it. And a lot of students, being a counselor, a lot of students are in fact, parents are the ones who are approaching saying, what do we do? Kids have nothing else to do apart from getting hooked onto screens. And screen time has increased so much now that, it is becoming really challenging the way children are getting addicted. And it's not actually their fault also. We can blame children or not. I think we really need to discuss further here. Thank you so much, Usha ma'am. I think we can move ahead to Dr. Neeta Bali. Any questions? Usha ma'am is still here. Students, those who are listening, and all the counselors or the audience can please put up their queries in the Q&A box, as Almaz said. Dr. Neeta Bali, over to you, ma'am. And I think we really need to hear how schools need to work on dealing with current times. I think you need to unmute, Dr. Neeta Bali.
Am I audible now?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I'm a great fan of hers. Have been listening and reading what she's been writing about career counseling. It's always an honor and a privilege to listen to you, Usha ji.
Thank you, Nita. It's nice to see you here.
Thank you.
It makes me feel like it's old times again. So many familiar faces.
Yes.
And it's good that everybody is working in this field, because this has become so important, much so now because of the circumstances we are under.
Yes. Yes. I would also like to welcome my panelists for today, Ms. Shalini Nambiar, who runs a beautiful consultancy, is a very driven and dedicated educator, has been doing some exemplary work, has worked with some great organizations as a senior vice president with GEMS and with the Vibrio group, also with GD Guanta at some point of time, is now busy designing her own programs for teacher trainings, and is doing extraordinary work. But more than anything else, I think the sheer exuberance and vitality that she brings to the profession is very commendable. And her vivaciousness is almost contagious. All you need to do is pick up the phone when you want to feel cheerful, pick up the phone, say hello to her, and you're feeling so much better. So great to have you here, Shalini. And
Thank you, Dr. Neeta.
We have Dr. Negi here. Dr. Negi, has she joined us here?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. She's there.
She's not visible on my screen, though. Dr. Seema Negi is the principal and head of school at the Sanjeevani World School, which is in Mumbai. And again, another very charismatic personality, has been doing great work with her school, is very well known in that part of India, particularly in the western part, and also now is getting very well known and has a strong presence across pan India. So thank you for joining. And today we are going to be talking about online teaching and learning is here to stay. And I really think it is here to stay because of the current scenario. It has probably brought us face to face with the reality that a conventional classroom can no longer be a viable option, because things have changed and we have to learn to live with the new normal. So when I say the new normal, it obviously means that you cannot have children studying in a brick and mortar building. You would need to have children having some other model of learning where they are able to learn effectively from home, as well as they're able to attend classes in a school. And that is how we see the future of education now. It has completely, this pandemic has completely transformed the face of education. And in fact, there is a flip side to the pandemic also, I must say, as an educator and a principal, I feel overnight people have acquired skills. Somehow, even those who have resisted technology have somehow acquired appropriate skills to teach online. And very quickly, those who have never been fond of technology have picked up skills very quickly and are doing a great job. I think across India, across the world, teachers are doing a great job of online teaching. So when I talk about blended teaching learning, what we are talking about is that the students learn not merely in a classroom, they also learn online using all kinds of media and electronic devices, along with traditional face-to-face teaching, which of course is not happening right now, but in the near future, hopefully, fingers crossed, should happen. We should be able to revert to a classroom, have children with us. The advantage of the online and blended teaching learning is the fact that most children and most teachers are able to control the time, the place, and the pace of learning. And essentially, the purpose of blended learning is making teaching learning a more engaging experience. And they say that there are four models of blended teaching learning: the rotation model, the flex model, the a la carte model, and the enriched virtual model. Uh, when we say the rotation model, mostly online teaching, somewhat in a traditional setup. When we talk about flex blended teaching, mostly online again, but also combined with the traditional setup. A la carte, the learner takes online courses in addition to the core curriculum. And finally, the enriched virtual, where students they divide their time between learning remotely and attending a brick and mortar school. So broadly, they are more or less the same. But from the look of things, blended learning is here to stay. So now I'd like to ask Shalini about what is her perception of blended teaching learning, and what are the advantages that she sees in blended teaching learning. You'll need to unmute yourself, Shalini.
Thank you, Dr. Neeta, for a very warm welcome. Please send a copy to my mother-in-law. Please do that. And good morning, Seema. Finally, I'm seeing you virtually online. And good morning, Miss Usha. It's a pleasure to have you on the same platform. I'm a big fan of yours. And thanks, Astha, for being there. And good morning to all the viewers. In fact, it's good afternoon now. So I feel, for me as an educator, I've always been passionate about education. I've always tried to make a difference in the way we are teaching. And whatever 21st century skills we have been talking about, I feel COVID has given us a golden opportunity to be able to incorporate all that. So when we come to blended teaching and learning, I think, as you've already stressed, Dr. Neeta, the advantages it has. But I feel a major question is, which we really need to answer, is that are the teachers aware what is blended learning? Is blended learning just giving some worksheets to a child, giving some digital resources? Are they making an effort to make it engaging? Are they realizing that how do they distinguish what is to be given online and what is to be given offline, as and when we get out of the lockdown situation? Because this is going to stay for a long time, at least for a year, I can assure you. We will be following the online classes, looking at the situation around. But so very, very important when we talk about the impact of blended teaching and learning, I think one very major advantage of it is it's very student-centric. So are the teachers aware of that they can give children choices? They can allow children to work on it on their own pace or time? Or are we still following the traditional classroom, the only difference being that we are doing it online? So first and foremost, it's very, very important that teachers understand the difference between face-to-face traditional classroom and understand how we can teach online. And blended teaching has, as you said, various models, like the flipped classroom. Now, do the teachers understand? one very important point which I want to stress, we are living in a Netflix era. We are all watching Netflix. You can't go to a theater hall. Now, how do you decide on a movie? You decide on a movie when you see the trailer. The first 2 minutes are very, very important, because if you like it, you watch it. Otherwise, you move on to the next one. So the teachers need to understand the advantage of blended learning. The lesson planning for that is extremely important. The traditional classroom, mixing the two. You need to understand, how do I plan? How do I make it engaging? Am I able to achieve the learning outcomes? The instant feedback is very important in a blended kind of a teaching and learning, where, because this is a 2-minute Maggie generation, they want instant feedback. So you cannot have the same kind of assessment process which we have been following. It has to be totally different. When we talk about critical thinking, problem solving, I think blended teaching and learning incorporates all that. But we need to focus a lot on the professional development of the teachers, because I find in my interaction with the teachers that you find that, 20 to 35 years teachers, they are very good at adapting to technology. But it's the older generation, which is a large chunk of our teaching fraternity. Are they ready for this? Are we prepared for this? Because the challenge is the online teaching, when you read about it so much, why is it not having the right impact? It is not having the right impact because there is a lack of planning. There is a lack of training. There's a lack of making it engaging. Those 40 minutes, even our webinar, if it is not engaging, people are going to go off. They're going to just put their pictures, maybe go and do their housework or whatever, And children are smarter than adults. So we need to understand that it is here to stay. There is no running back. And it has been rightly said by the research. Teachers who are adapting technology are going to be surviving in this world, We need to understand the way technology is overtaken. But teachers must remember, we are the masters. We cannot, we need to be, technology is a tool, just like a blackboard is a tool. You cannot depend on technology completely. You cannot say, okay, I've sent a video to you and you expect the child to learn it. So a blended learning, how I feel it can be distinguished, that in an online class, it needs to be more interactive. It needs to be more collaborative. It needs to be more engaging. It needs to be more where the children are allowed to talk. The children are not going to sit and listen for a 35-minute class, while a face-to-face class can be used for all those other things which the teacher is originally doing so. But very important that how do we make the online classes impactful is a major question in the blended teaching. It is not just sending online worksheets, creating a graph. No, it's not that. It is how do we make it impactful. So I think that is a major thing which we need to answer really. How do we do it? How do we make it impactful?
Yeah. Thank you, Shalini. I think very well said. You're so right. Unless teaching learning is engaging, you would not be able to lure the children, so to say, into your classrooms. Very often when I visit the classrooms, the online classrooms, I find that some students have a tendency not to turn on their cameras. That's because they have switched off. They're no longer interested in what's happening in the class. So just to ensure that the teacher somehow, to make their presence, to register their presence, it appears at the camera, but they turn off the cameras. So you can figure out that the child is not there. These things can happen, but if a classroom is engaging, interesting, alive, I'm sure children are more than happy. And for this, I think the onus and responsibility is now with the teachers. So Seema, I'd like to come to you now to speak to you about how do we make blended teaching, how do we make our teachers ready for blended teaching?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Nita, for this lovely question. And before that, I would like to express my gratitude to all the stalwarts who are present here. I'm still very new, but Dr. Nita, this question, especially how do we prepare one who are on the other side of the table so they know maximum. So teaching teacher is definitely a difficult task. Now, how we did it in our school, I will quote that example. So since from the beginning, being a very, very futuristic school, we used to train our teachers
for generational disparity to understand this generation. So when we started training them for generational disparity, technology came to our school very early and we started learning about that. So all of a sudden, when we were thrown into this disruption where technology became our tool, first we had switched all the modules that we had, offline modules or the resources that we had, we converted all the resources to digital resources. It saved a lot of time and it is saving a lot of time. We have uploaded them on our LMS system. Then teachers have worked on making podcasts, they have worked on making videos, but just our children to do the same kind of thing. So that beautiful thing came when students took over the onus. Started with something called our own enrichment program, that is DIY. Now here what is happening, teacher work has become very easy when students have taken onus because they are the natives. They know about technology much more than us. We told teachers not to be afraid of the failure. And then I think that was the biggest step for us because then teachers tried everything and they started taking students' feedback. And trust me, when we got students' feedback, we came to know that they actually know much more than us and they were helping teachers with various kind of new gadgets, new apps, new programs, and the beautiful blend has now we have survived for 2 months online, 2 months, because we started in the month of June and the classes are becoming more and more engaging. Now, if the child goes off camera as either due to technical glitches or because of the weather condition, otherwise students do not go off camera. And as Shalinji rightly said about the whiteboard, blackboard, they are all tools. So what we strongly believe is whether it's whiteboard or it's blackboard or it's screen, the magic can always be played by teacher. So the teacher needs to know the tool, needs to know the content so well that she can make her classes engaging. Because the moment you start seeing children going engaged in your classroom, we have also created a lot of safer space for our children. We have given voice to their platform, to their voice, so that the one who are basically introvert ones, those who do not want to speak a lot, we have created dashboards for them wherein they can write. So at least they can express themselves either verbally or through the written mode. Also, we have reworked on the assessment. I think all everyone has done, all the schools have reworked on their normal way of assessment to digital assessment. Here, which can be used for quizzes, which can be used for assessment and gamification of everything, and training teachers how to use gamification, teaching any subject, whether it is a complex math problem or is it writing a narrative, how we can use gamification. Now, if I talk about an English teacher giving an assignment, if English teacher gives a narrative to write, and here, if she tells children, they can make a beautiful cover page. Now the child is integrating technology so beautifully that not only the written work is getting over, but the usage of technology is also getting implemented properly. So these are few of the changes we have done, but I think it all starts from mind. So it all started from there. We all were ready. I know it was a forced decision for many of us, but then the way teachers have started experimenting all over the world. I mean, the entire verbal dynamics have now changed to the online discussion, online method, online methodology, and that is how we are progressing further. But yes, all of us need to know, especially teachers, that technology is not here to rule us, but technology is here as a tool. And if we embrace it and adopt it the way Shalini ji also said and Dr. Neeta said, then it will be here. The day we will surrender to technology and if we feel that, okay, let technology take over, then we as teachers will not become impactful. So it's we as teachers who have the magic wand with us. The only thing is we have to use technology properly. And that is what we are doing, Dr. Neeta.
Thank you so much, Seema. Thank you. Very well said. You spoke about generational disparity and younger students being digital natives. In fact, there is so much to learn. When I go into a classroom, I personally like to teach a subject called theory of knowledge. So when I go into a classroom and teach, very often when I want to make a presentation and I'm grappling, I have absolutely no qualms about turning around and telling some kid to help me with the presentation. So they are digital natives. There is a generational disparity, but I don't think we should ever have any qualms about admitting that, well, we may be technologically handicapped, definitely compared to the children. We are not as fast and as good as them. So there's really, it's a two-way thing. You learn from them and they learn from you. However, I also feel that there are some disadvantages of blended teaching learning. One, I think that a lot of teachers, when I speak with them, they feel that they're overworked because it requires an adequate amount of preparation, and that preparation time probably also cuts into their own personal time. So teachers, because they are sitting in front of a laptop or any other device, I think the teachers feel a sense of tiredness, fatigue, and they feel overworked because of the enormous amount of preparation that is required. When I often speak to children, uh, children complain that the cognitive load seems to be much more in blended teaching learning. It is definitely very enjoyable, but I think the cognitive load is definitely much, much more in a blended teaching learning model. And the other thing that worries us as an international school is the credibility of the sources that they are using when they're using technology, the credibility of the sources that they're using, and of course the danger of plagiarism, because in an international curriculum particularly, academic honesty is the cornerstone of any international curriculum. So when we transact an international curriculum, one has to be very mindful that you cite the sources, so you really never know where students are picking up the content, how much are they plagiarizing. So we have to be very, very vigilant with the staff and with the students that there are no plagiarized content that is being used in the blended learning models. However, um, from the look of things, um, these are a few disadvantages. But looking at the pros and cons, I think by and large, blended teaching learning seems to have, it's a wave that is sweeping over the entire world and seems to be gaining popularity. And I think it is here to stay, so definitely to stay. Uh, Now, let me just go back to Shalini for a bit and request her to speak about um, how does blended learning create a sense of community in large classes? If you have very
Yeah,
large classes,
yeah.
how does it create a sense of community in these large classes?
So I think very important point, some of the points which you said about the disadvantages, I really appreciate that. Because like we are also missing the human touch. We are not used to the cameras and all the time on this thing. It requires a lot of patience, a lot of hard work on the part of teachers, and I think we need to salute them at this moment, rather than criticizing them for their struggle, because they're not used to it. And when you're talking about the community, how do we connect in a large class? I think the very, what I have understood from your question, I think it's a very important blended teaching and learning. What I feel, it is extremely important when we come to differentiated instruction. Yeah. And when we talk about the community, the large class which is there, like I met a teacher, virtually, who's taking a class of 45 kids on a mobile phone because she doesn't have the money to buy a laptop. That is the amount of effort teachers are putting in. So community establishment can be done. It is there. But then how do we do it? Again, the question comes, are we training the teachers enough? Do they know? Or are they telling the children, which I really, really do not like when they tell the children, mute yourself. No, don't tell them to mute. Because you need to allow them to speak to each other. You need to allow them to be able to express themselves. I think that is the main purpose of education. And I'm sure Ms. Usha will agree with me that why they are not able to decide their career later in life, because of all these obstacles which we put in them when they're in a classroom. So I feel I want to stress on 2 points, Nika, in continuation of blended learning. Very, very vital for me and important, because I'm sure there are teachers on this. How do you make it engaging? When we're talking about community, how do you do that? So very important, very simple strategies. You don't need to be a technology wizard. I'm not a technology wizard, but I've learned during the lockdown, how to create videos, how to create ads. I've done a lot of learning. So very important, follow simple strategies, netiquettes. Send a mailer. What exactly are you expecting the children? Like we do it in a face-to-face class. This is the way you're required to sit. This is what you're supposed to follow. Send them, share your plan. Because blended teaching and learning is all about telling the children beforehand what exactly I want you to learn. So the children, at least 60% children will go through the material. Send them a plan. Monday we'll do this. Tuesday I'm going to do this. Wednesday I'm going to do this. So that the children come for the class with a little bit of excitement. Because it's not a face-to-face class. I need to create that energy that Asta is keen to coming for my class. Otherwise, why would she come? You know, third very important thing is differentiated instruction. This is your golden opportunity to connect with each and every child, build a community right there and then. Or one child is not listening, you have private chat rooms. You have those options. You can go there and interact. Very important, introduce starters and plenary. Are you doing that? Are you making your lesson interesting? And when we talk about how do we make the children build a community, like the teachers need to understand the difference between projects and project-based learning. You know, there is a marked difference. If I want to build a community amongst the students who are attending my class, I need to focus on giving them projects which has a real life connection, where they, you know, diagnose a problem in the community, they come together in a virtual class, they resolve it, maybe half an hour per week, which will help you in establishing a connect, not only between them, but also in the larger community which is existent. So I want to share a very funny thing, you know. I was interacting with some of the students. Everybody looks at COVID worldometer and they were very excited. India is number 2, 3, like whatever they say, you know. I just asked them a very simple question. How many countries are there in the world? And they didn't know. So what where our education, and I'm very happy with the new national education policy, because it's focusing on a holistic development of a child. Are we teaching him all that? So when we talk about Dr. Neeta, community interaction, you need to first build that community in the class which is there. Are we building that, or are we muting them and telling them you cannot interact with each other? So there are a lot of strategies. So two things that teachers need to focus on in a blended classroom, whether you're building a community, whether you're teaching them collaboration, whether you're teaching them problem solving. It's not just a part of a lesson plan, it is how effectively we are able to implement that. You know, they need to understand the nuances of critical thinking, the small strategies, simple strategies. That is important, not the big words. So two things very important. Are the children engaged? Second question is, are they motivated enough to come to your class? Like Dr. Neeta said, you know, a lot of children, they put off their, you know, the camera. She has observed in some classes. Dr. Seema also mentioned, because children are smart, and when they are not engaged, they will do that. So the ultimate question is a teacher needs to ask in this time is, am I engaging them? Am I making my teaching impactful? Is it, are the children learning? And that's what I said, netiquette is something very important. You know, you need to send a mailer, make it very clear. You know, now online classes is not a holiday. You cannot come in your sleeping suit for a class. Oh, I just got up. No, you need to be a professional. It is the class. The parents need to be informed this is a regular class happening. So you need to make your child get up. It's not a holiday time. The only difference is, instead of coming face to face, you're attending an online class. I think that is very important, Dr. Neeta.
Apart from that, Shalini, I think we are now towards the end of our discussion, but one thing is for sure, that in the days to come, maybe in the years to come, blended teaching learning is there to stay. The other thing is the onus and responsibility of making this kind of a model workable, interesting, engaging is primarily on the teachers. And I think this kind of a model really offers a lot of scope for collaboration amongst the students and the teachers. So if you're able to ferret out the secret of how to make this interesting, I think it is far more interesting, far more productive, and enjoyed thoroughly by the students. We are hopeful that in the days to come, when this entire pandemic subsides, the children will be back to a brick and mortar school. at least for some days of the week in a staggered manner. And on some days they can work, they can study from home, and the teachers can teach from home. We close this discussion with this. However, before we close the discussion, we'd like to take 2 questions, please. If anybody has a question, we would like one of the panelists to answer it.
Yes, ma'am. So it was very, very enlightening to hear Dr. Neeta Bali opening the discussion with emphasis on blended learning, and how Miss Shalini, took on teachers dealing with the kind of obstacles they are facing today. I was so happy to hear someone talking about the kind of obstacles teachers are facing, and how to deal with the diverse set of students that we have in a classroom, and engaging students, to get them motivated to attend these classes. And Dr. Seema talking about giving examples, sharing examples from how they are doing it at their end. There is a question by one of the participants from the audience. I would like to quickly take that up also with our panelists. So Dr. Ahmed asks about how do we deal with false attribution, or how false attribution can be minimized when students say they are not able to connect, or attribute that there is network connectivity issue at their end. As teachers have to believe whatever the students are saying, since it can't be cross checked online. So how do we deal with this false attribution, and how can it be minimized? I think Ms. Shalini, Dr.
Yeah.
Neeta, Dr. Negi, you can all
Yeah.
answer the question.
With your permission, I would, because I have another commitment and I'd like to leave. So very quickly, and then Shalini and Dr. Negi can speak about it. This is a very real problem. In fact, a lot of students do not appear for classes claiming that there are network issues where they live, right? But I really feel that children should be taught to take responsibility for their own learning. They take the onus and responsibility for their learning. They must also understand the consequences of not attending these classes. And of course, there should be deterrence, very strong deterrence, which I would say some measures which could be used perhaps to let the children know that they would be penalized if they do not attend these classes, and the loss is entirely theirs. So unless children take responsibility for their learning, now that happens in a face-to-face classroom as well. There are children who are not paying attention to the teacher. It doesn't happen only in an online classroom or in a blended classroom. But let me tell you, one thing is for sure, there is lesser movement, because in an actual classroom, there's a lot of movement, a lot of noise. But in an online class, those who are serious are really serious.
True.
And those who are not. But I think children need to be taught to take responsibility for their learning. Your permission, please, may I exit? Thank you, Shalini and Dr.
Thank you.
Negi. And thank you, ICAE, for having me here, since there is another commitment.
Thank you, Dr. Bali. Thank you so much for sharing your views. It was truly wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
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 Bye.
I think we can have your views also, Ms. Shalini and Dr. Negi, on students, making excuses for not attending classes, though you've already mentioned about engaging students and motivating them to do so. But also we have to understand at the same time, I would just like to add on to what the participant has asked. When we're talking about diverse set of students, we also have students coming from all walks of life, and we have our economically weak section also, who are not attuned to technology, who are not having technology at their end. And these children, somewhere we also have a feeling are suffering. Being a counselor, I have also been talking to these children, because they are not attending classes, and they say that we don't have phones, we don't have laptops. How do we go about it? My father is trying to buy me a new one, but that is the reason I've not attended any class so far. So how do we deal with these kind of challenges and help these children also at the same time?
So I think it's a very interesting question. And of course, if I look at it, the major points, as Dr. Neeta said, we have to build that trust and responsibility on the child. See, what happens, we usually do not do that. I mean, let's face facts. We don't trust children. We presume that they are telling a lie, that no, this is correct. We need to understand that from the child's perspective, that what is the reason? Why is he not attending the class? Is it the network issue? Does he not have the laptop? Is he finding the class boring? And 99.9% time when you talk to the child, the problem is very simple, that he's not finding it interesting. Either he's a very high ability child who finds the class boring, or he's a low ability child who doesn't understand what is happening. So, see, the network, the problem of a laptop not being there, computer not being there, I think that needs to be handled on a broader perspective. I really don't know how schools can handle that. That's a very different issue. But what we can focus is the educational bit. How do we make it that every child attends the class? That's what I said, the etiquettes help. You need to be very firm as a professional, like you need to be very clear. My class starts at 10. You need to be there at 9:55 sharp. No, there is a very easy way. Teacher says, okay, if you don't come to my class, like even in a face-to-face, I'll throw you out of the class, right? I have stood myself outside the class, and honestly speaking, after some point, you start enjoying it. Because why you're making a noise in the class, you're finding it boring, so you want to move out. And then you create more noise because you want your friends also to come out. Because you're better off outside than in a class. So the teacher needs to understand that if a child is coming late, or if he's putting his, not coming for the class, as Dr. Neeta said, you need to lay down, these are the rules. So you will be in the class, but you will not be allowed to participate, right? I will be putting you on mute and you cannot collaborate. You cannot answer any questions. You need to be strict and follow those rules. Once you put it strictly and the child realizes, and also make a one-to-one call. You can easily do that. You can have a WhatsApp call with the child. You can have a chat room call with the child. Try and understand the reason why he's not there. See, that is very important. Before we put a punishment, okay, you will not do this, you will not do that. At least try and listen to the child. What is the reason? Am I not understanding? Am I finding it boring? I'm from a low, background, so I'm finding it a little confusing. Whatever, my house is visible at the back. Anything. There's a child I met who doesn't want to be in a virtual class because he lives in a one-bedroom apartment. He says, when I'm taking the class, my mom and dad are moving at the back. I find it embarrassing because the children are making fun of me. Now, does the teacher know? What are the reasons? What are the insecurities in the mind of the child? See, before we decide on punishing a child, I hate punishments. I have never punished a child. You need to give him time. You need to understand. They're children, we are adults. We need to understand what is the reason. Very, very simple. I'll just tell you a very simple incident. When I was heading a school, I was taking around, and a teacher came to me that these children are playing with Costco balls in the class. Now, okay, fine. I said, okay, I'll help you. I went in the class. And I told the kids, why you're not doing, we are finding it boring, the usual answer. Okay, now when they're in a group, it's very stupid to ask them, why you're not attending the class. They will say something, because they are together. So I said, okay, can you use the Costco ball in a creative way? You won't believe they immediately sat down, they formed groups, they created so many things with those Costco balls. So you need to understand. You come with a plan. I've come to teach fractions. The children are not paying attention. A teacher needs to be a magician. She needs to be an artist. She should be able to change her strategy to make it engaging. And talk to the child. Like in US, it is mandated by law that every class teacher needs to speak during the lockdown to one child every day. Are we doing it? Are we explaining to them? Children don't know COVID. We are ourselves stressed. Imagine the plight of a 10-year-old, not able to go out, not having a very healthy lifestyle. I mean, we are missing the social connect. So try and understand. I feel that helps understanding a child rather than forming an opinion. Yeah.
I think wonderfully expressed, ma'am. And so we all need to plan according to learners' needs and learners' perspective. To sum it up, before I move on to Dr. Negi, Usha ma'am has been listening quite patiently. She's been a patient listener in all this conversation. But I also have a question here for Usha ma'am, if you can just help us understand, ma'am, what is more important? Is it more important to seek knowledge and concept building, or learning facts for children today in the current scenario? What is more important? I mean, a child who's been missing online classes, how that child can still go on taking some skills from somewhere. So I think we would really want your inputs here, ma'am, before I move on to Dr. Negi.
Okay. I don't think you can separate the two. It's all part and parcel of everything. To build a good knowledge base, you need to have some facts and you put them together. The facts have to be in a context. So if the facts are put into context, I know a lot of kids find very interesting to look at facts. They go there as they're scrolling their Facebook or Twitter or Instagram pages, some facts come up, they immediately can tell you about those facts. But once they put them in a context, then, and that's what learning is about, you know, rather than some random fact, you might know a random fact, but there's no point if it isn't within a context. And I think what Shalini very rightly said, you know, one has to engage the child in a manner in which the learning is possible. And there are many, many different ways in which, I mean, teachers are past masters at that. They know, you know, what will engage a child, what will not, how will they engage it. You know, so if you're looking at, even facts can be made interesting, you have a quiz, you have a game, you put it together and put it in a context. And I think the other thing which I'm listening to all of this is that it is a very difficult time. There's no doubt about it. And you can't blame kids if they're not engaging, they're not listening. After all, their attention span is also limited. And, you know, and as you said, so much else going on in the house. Some kids don't have that quiet space. So they're doing their class, their younger siblings or older siblings are running about or doing something else, parents. So I think we also need to know, I mean, there are several students who come to me and say that, you know, I have online classes from 10 o'clock in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. I said, don't you get a break? No, ma'am, except 1 hour and the rest of the time. Now, that's a very punishing schedule to be sitting in front of a screen and just trying to study. Because as it is, the study mode is different. It's difficult. You have no interaction. You have no, you know, way in which you can relax or chat with friends or share things and even or have a chat with the teacher. So you can't expect the children. So I think maybe we also need to do a rethink of how are we engaging in these online classes. So that's one observation I have. And the second is, I think, again, the learning. How important is that learning for the child? You know, we are actually, our learning is very, very poor in the way in which what are we making them learn? Many of them don't see it in a context. I'm learning these formulas, these chemistry I don't have any use for it. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't want to do this. But if we put it into a context, what does chemistry teach you? How is it linked to our maybe day-to-day life? It's useful to know that. So even if you may not do chemistry, you're not going to go on to do chemical engineering, or you're not going to do anything else. But it's useful to know because these are the kind of things in which you can relate to life. Now, if the students know there's a value to that education and the learning they have, again, they might react to it differently. So these are just one or two observations I have about because I think our whole way of teaching has to change. And I'm happy that now the learning outcomes and the way they're going to be assessed is going to be different. We're not going to look at marks. So let us forget about marks. You know, really, I'm so happy with those marks. The bugbear for me was kids coming to say, ma'am, I'm no good at anything. And yet they're getting 85, 90%. And then they feel I'm not good at anything because with 85, 90%, you're nowhere. And yet they're all brilliant kids. So I'm sure as teachers, you are aware of it, and you must be also very relieved because now all your teaching can be meaningful, can have a value. And even to the kids from, who are getting less marks or who are disadvantaged in terms of their learning environment, I think we could actually get value out of the new way in which the assessment and the teaching is done.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you so much. And quickly, very quickly, I think Dr. Negi, we would also like your inputs, since now the screen time we all know has increased for all of us. But you know how, when as far as now teachers are also trying to understand, the CBSE is emphasizing on reducing the time, reducing the screen time, and we're talking about how we can blend learning and so many things. But at the same time, teachers are concerned about, you know, curriculum being covered, the curriculum that we have. Though we have made changes, there are changes you know, being made in terms of the curriculum also. Reduction in curriculum has also taken place. Yet if we reduce the time slot assigned, then how are we going to cover a lot of important concepts that teachers want to cover up in their syllabus? And what can we do? How can we reduce the screen time at the same you know, time, and complete the syllabus, the curriculum, and impart effective learning, blended learning, as we've been talking about?
So thank you for this question. Now, rather than curriculum, I think we need to focus more on learning. As Usha ma'am also said, I firmly believe, like, when we are talking about science, if a teacher is doing something related to simple machine, the entire science is there in our kitchen. So how are we using the time effectively? If 35 minutes a child is there in front of the screen, 15 minutes can be a lot of engaging activities. It cannot be just seeing the screen and then listening to the teacher. No, that is where teacher plays a major role. And as you were earlier also discussing about keeping children engaged and how to know whether they are right or wrong when they are telling network issues are there. And Charlie ma'am spoke about making teacher calling children. I would just like to add here quickly, when we started with our blending learning, first thing was teacher calling each and every child and understanding the home situation. Because during this era, if behind the child, school and home will not stand firmly, this entire module will fail. So we know about each and every child. If any child is facing any problem, any network issue, before teacher logs in, that message comes to us in the group that today my child will be sitting off camera. And second thing, we trust our children. We trust them. I know twice they can lie. It's okay. Third time, they will understand that what they have done is wrong. Academic honesty is important for teachers also, for educators also, and for children also. See, curriculum is just a small bit. This year is not about curriculum. This year is about learning. Are we learning the right kind of skills? Can't we integrate our English with our science, and our science with our math, and everything can be taught in a beautiful manner? Can't we integrate things with art and craft and dance and music? We have actually segregated curricular subject and extracurricular subject. If it becomes curricular and co-curricular and blend it together, I don't think learning will ever be a problem. And it won't be an issue with teachers also. So rather than screen time, it is what are we imparting? Are we imparting mindfully? Are we thoughtful about what we are doing? Because with screen, you can collaborate with the world. Few things that we were not able to do in physical school, we are doing in blended learning. So embrace it positively, see the positive aspects. There are many positivity. Everything has something negative. But again, it's there. We are the mind. If we are set, everything is set. That is how I have to put it up.
Thank you so much, Dr. Negi. Again, very, very enlightening. The way you've shared your experiences and your inputs, I think listeners are gaining a lot of information, and it'll really help them deal with the current times in the education. Before we conclude the session, one last one from you, Usha ma'am. Since I hear a lot of students quoting this online, and since we all are in, again, digitized world now, interacting online, you know, a lot of students have started expressing their opinion related to their career choices openly. And a lot of students these days say that, ma'am, I want to become a YouTuber. Still, do I need to study all these subjects? You know, and or I'm okay just doing blogging. And why do I study all of these subjects now? Why are you still burdening with me with history, science, and social studies, mathematics all together? So though new education policy has come up with the changes, but how do we tell students that other subjects are also integral for learning?
I'm glad you asked that, because these are the new careers and the students are asking about them. And I don't doubt that some of them may become YouTubers and bloggers and vloggers. In fact, I'm learning things that I didn't even know about. And when somebody told me, ma'am, it's not bloggers, it's also vloggers. So with a V. So I had to go and search it out and figure out what that was. But yes, so when students would ask me this, I normally would say that learning is something that you can't get away from in terms of a base of knowledge. You want to be a YouTuber, a blogger, you have to say things to people. You have to have the knowledge to be able to express it with some credibility. You only get that credibility when you learn something. So at least a base of learning is important. At least till class 10 or class 12, you take up the subjects that you are interested in. Maybe when you go into 11th and 12th, you then specialize in certain subjects that you need to. And then after that, also, you don't stop your learning. Even when you, to be a blogger, how many of the people who are bloggers or YouTubers, they're not uneducated. They've all come from very high sense of learning because they have learned some and they know how to communicate that they are where they are today. So I think all the learning, and as Seema ma'am has also been expressing, it has, if it is integrated, then out of all, whatever we do, even we do games or arts or music, you're learning something from it. So there is a little bit of history, there is a geography, there is a maths component in everything. And all of these can be blended in. And as you very rightly said, we can do it from our homes. And if the learning is made interesting, I think it's the way the learning is made interesting. Because I have standard responses from students. I mean, I will have scores of students who will come and say, ma'am, we don't like social studies. Why don't you like social studies? Because of the way it is taught. And I'm sorry to say, because we focus so much on the sciences, we give so little importance to social studies. Even the teacher herself says, nobody's going to take it up. Why even bother? So as a result of which, that is some way conveyed to the students. So they think, oh, if ma'am can't be bothered about teaching it to us and, you know, this is the way we have to do it, why bother to learn it? So they actually think that subject is unimportant. And then they see a film. They see a film on the history, and they see a film of Razia Sultan, and suddenly they say, man, my gosh, wow, that was really interesting. You know, I certainly learned more in that film than I did in my history class. Why was that? So I think all the learning can be made important and interesting to kids. And I think through that we can convey, irrespective of which career you want to go in, you must have a base of knowledge and learning, and you build on that to go to wherever you may want to go. And I always add one word of caution. Certain careers are what we call the performing careers. There is no clear career path for that. I can't say do a 3-year program and you'll become a master YouTuber. It won't happen. So for those people who want to do it, always have a fallback option. So be good in something else that you know and you know which has a clear career path. Do that. Then you can go on to whatever are your hobbies or interests and try your hand at it. Sometimes you may be able to do it side by side. And then whenever you become a big name, you can drop out of whatever you're doing and continue. I give the example of Chetan Bhagat. Chetan Bhagat is a prime example, as I said. He did engineering, then he did management, then he worked in a company for many years. And today he's doing all the things he wanted to do, but wasn't able to do. So he's become a social activist, a speaker, motivational speaker, a writer, an author. You know, so you can do that at a later stage once you know there are options for you.
I will just add to what Pusha ma'am said, because it was so nice to hear from you, ma'am, because we always say, and in particular, I firmly believe, if we have to teach about Taj Mahal or Golconda Fort, that is science. These kind of monuments cannot be made without science and mathematics. Similarly, when you are teaching history, why don't you tell your children to amalgamate technology and make a Facebook page for Akbar and write the entire timeline? I think amalgamation of teaching, learning subjects, if they are amalgamated well, they will be a beautiful way of learning. So I was so happy listening to that. I could not stop myself.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very important.
Thank you for
and
sharing.
I think
Dr.
especially
Negi.
even now, the COVID times.
Yes.
The COVID times, I keep telling people, look at COVID, it's thrown up, you can do maths and go into being a biostatistician, doing mathematical modeling for COVID, for diseases. So it's so integrated. It doesn't mean that you have to be a doctor or a scientist only. As a mathematician, you can go into mathematical modeling for anything. So everything is integrated and no knowledge is ever wasted.
Absolutely, ma'am. I think audience are really enjoying this session. I thought I'll be concluding here, but there are more questions. I would definitely like Shalini ma'am to take on a few because participants are asking, and there's a significant question one participant has asked. How do we make parents understand about blended learning and the activity-based learning when they are the ones who are focusing on marks? I think Shalini ma'am, you can take this question.
I think
sorry to interrupt, Asta. Sorry, before can I just interrupt because I would need to leave the session. So thank you very much, Asta, for organizing this session, and it was lovely to meet up with you, Shalini and Dr. Seema. So nice, and hopefully we'll meet on other programs. Thank you, Asta.
Thank you. And for the participant questions, Usha ma'am, to you. Thank you, Usha ma'am. Thank you so much.
Sorry to interrupt, Shalini. Please carry on. Thank you.
Yeah. So basically, there is a total mind shift we need to make in our society. Okay. If you look at, why only parents, even teachers, they put so much of pressure on a child that you need to get 100. If you don't get, it is a normal process. Let's face the reality. And that is my challenge with the new national education policy, where it is saying that there'll be board exams will be holistic. It is not going to be focusing. And we are coming up with such an interesting international methodology that, okay, if you don't do well in an exam, you can sit for another one to improve your scores. The problem is the mind shift. The parents need to understand that marks, and let's be honest, 99%ers are roaming around today without jobs. It's the 50 to 60%ers who are the CEOs of company, if you look around yourself, because they have all the skills. Amazon, Google, they have clearly said, we don't care about degrees. You might be a 12th pass, but you have the requisite skills. When will the parents and the society understand? If I got 99, right? I'm just giving an example. In my times, it was, wow, you got 99, you're brilliant. No, I wanted to do English and history, but my dad told me, no, you do eco because you're brilliant. You got 99. Marks is not a reflection of what your interest is. So parents need to understand, as a school, we need to do a lot of parenting session. If you ask a parent in a session, what do you want your child to be? Everybody parent says, I want my child to be happy, right? That's what they say. Then why are you focusing on marks? Look at how many people during the COVID have lost their jobs. There is acute depression around. This is education. Are people able to handle themselves? Are they able to face failures? Has education taught us that, or their parents and society, we've only taught them run. If you don't come first, you fail. No. So we need to understand, we need to bring about a total mind shift, a change, where we need to walk the talk. It's not just for a webinar where I say, okay, I don't believe in marks. And I go home and I tell my son, you didn't get 99. Oh my God, I'm ashamed of you. That's what is happening in the society. And I'm sorry, I'm very livid and emotional because it's a fact. We have so many webinars where every educationist is talking marks are not important. And why are they posting pictures of the kids having secured 100 out of 100 out of board result? Why? You tell me. We need to bring about a change. You put a picture of all your students and say, This one scored 50, this one scored 60, and mention his strength below. Aren't we encouraging that culture? So why are we blaming parents? The whole society, we need to change. Look at Einstein, yeah, the perfect example. He didn't even go to a school, yeah. Look at 30 years back. How many innovations we have had? Tell me. Has anybody innovated? No. Because we love teaching rote learning. We like children to do what we want them to do. I want you to be a doctor. You can't become a doctor if you don't get 100. Children have got 50%. They've got into MBBS. Let's be candid. You know, there is a under the table and you get it. You're a doctor tomorrow. Is this the society we are living in? We need to, I seriously believe that we need to walk the talk. Take the path which is less taken. You know, and parents need to trust their child. Have confidence. We did better than, our previous generation, and the next generation, let me tell you, will do better than us. That's the law of nature. So have faith in that. They will not fail you. They'll do very well. And Asta, you'll have to excuse me. I have a previous commitment, 1:15.
Sure.
My guys are waiting.
Sure.
And I hope I've been able
Absolutely.
to answer you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah?
Definitely. Thank you so much for such enlightening views and so much of information that you have shared. I think listeners have really benefited today from this session. It was an honor to listen to you. Ma'am, thank you so much. It was a
Thank
pleasure.
you. Thank you,
Thank you
Asta,
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you, Dr. Seema. Pleasure
Thank
seeing you
you.
virtually. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Same here.
Dr. Seema, one last question, because I see Mr. Raul D'Souza is already there and he is supposed to take the next session. Just one last question from the audience. I think it's also important. So if you can quickly answer and we can move ahead for the next session. And that is that how do you think assessments, online assessments are effective to assess the knowledge in children today that they are gaining today? Online assessments will be they are asking that whether online assessments will be effective in assessing the actual knowledge of children today.
See, if the online assessments are conducted aesthetically, wherein you are not judging only their understanding level, but you are letting them express in an open platform, they will be useful. It all depends upon which module you have taken. See, whether it's online or offline, it always depends upon which delivering the information, whether the information is perceived by the child properly, and whether the child is able to produce that information in his or her own way with the right understanding and facts. If the child is able to do that, you're either whether it's online or offline, your assessments are successful.
Absolutely, ma'am. I think parents also have to share some responsibility there to ensure that it is ethically conducted and students take it seriously, because we all are in the same time now and we all need to adapt to it. Thank you so much, Dr. Seema. It was really a pleasure having you, ma'am. And I'm sure everybody listening agreed to me that it was a wonderful session. Thank you so much once again. And we move ahead. To our next session. Mr. Raul is already there. Mr. Raul, can we have you back on screen?
Yes, hello. Good afternoon.
Hi, it is so good to see you after so long.
Yes.
Mr. Roy has been doing a lot of workshops, sessions, career fairs, even at different schools. At my school, I have seen him a number of times talking about design and how design is taking on. And he represents a very eminent design school, Instituto Maragani. And he will be taking on the topic, he will be taking the session on the topic, the role of AI in classrooms today. Over to you, Mr. Raul. It's a pleasure to see you. Yeah.
Thank you, Asta ma'am. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I know you had such wonderful session whole morning. I don't know whether I can do justice, but I will quickly go through a little presentation that I've prepared. I think and it's more of videos so that students can relax and parents especially to see what is the future of education holds now and how AI, that is artificial intelligence, will play a very, very key role, not only in technology, not only in marketing, not only in different aspects, but very much in education and of course, and design. Therefore, it will be very, very, very important, will play a very important role in the next, I think, 15, 20 years. And that's what Instituto Marangoni is working on for the next up to, I think, 2035. What the future of design, what the future of education, art, everything will be. So I'll go straight to my presentation. I'll try to make it as short as possible and enjoyable. And please don't hesitate then to ask any questions thereafter. So I will share. Oh, sorry, it's got the wrong one. I hope my screen is seen.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay.
It's visible. Yeah.
A short introduction to Instituto Marangoni. It's one of the first schools for fashion, art, and design in Europe.
I'm studying the Master of Fashion Design. Everything is fashion. Just gonna do something that I like.
My dream is to have a brand.
Enjoy. I love the school.
My name is Chris. I'm 20 and I'm be comfortable is to
be a fashion designer. The meaning of fashion. I want to be a fashion designer. Start my own business.
I don't care who wanna tear me apart. I don't care if you see the sky full of stars. I think I saw you.
So here you could see the interaction of our students. There were some questions regarding blended learning, and no better example than the design industry. Yeah, because it's very important to, okay, yeah, one sec. The next. So moving to the next. So I just wanted to speak about the design schools, how they are very important. Sorry, I really just jumped this. Can I jump to the next? My topic is, tomorrow that starts today. And this video of the school, Instituto Marangoni is the first school for design in Italy, started in 1935. And though it's such an old school, it's a very interactive school, a very constant innovating. It's been one of the pioneers of design education in the industry, helping the industry to build and constantly grow by preparing really professionals for this industry, which is very required, skilled professionals. And right now, it's taken it further because with the current situation, we are forced to adapt and not continue with what has been existing till now. And the very characteristic of Marangoni has been to constantly grow and constantly innovate over the years. And that's why at this crisis situation, we have been one of the first to adapt. Because if you look through our history, right from 2000, we started opening and growing. Till 2000, we were concentrating on just developing the industry within Italy. So Milan was our main campus. And then after 2000, we opened the London branch and the Paris branches. So we were three major in the three fashion capitals. But from the last 10 years, 11 years, we have constantly innovated. We have restructured our headquarters, moved out of the campus and into another building. In 2010, we tied up with MMU, Manchester Metropolitan University, and validated our courses in London and Paris. And then we started, different design education, a new innovation of how with program leaders and unit leaders to develop consistently our program, our curriculum in collaboration with the industry. Then in 2012, we established the Shanghai campus. We restructured and went to a new venue in 2013 in Paris, which is a beautiful city. It's on the Art Street, which is perpendicular to the Fashion Street in Paris. In 2014, we segregated the fashion school and the design school in Milan itself. So Milan is also known for the interior design, product and graphics. So besides fashion, so we had a separate school. In 2015, we opened Shenzhen, the second school in China. In 2016, we opened Firenze, Florence. In 2017, Mumbai. 2018, Miami in the US. And so you see we're constantly growing and innovating. And in all these cities, we have been very instrumental in developing the luxury industry or the design industry also in these. And artificial intelligence has started to play now a very key role. Right now, it's mostly with nanotechnology, with certain technologies, with medicine, with marketing. But the fashion industry has been very limited. It has been very limitedly used with fashion, with basically with online sales. You see the online stores now. Many of the brands have their own online store where you don't have to physically go to a store in Milan, but you can view it from the convenience of your home, and you can decide and you can buy and you can select. But in the next few years, artificial intelligence will play a much more significant role, in fashion, in the business of fashion or design. And for that, one example is on the store. Even if you go to physically to a store, there will be machines like this where you can interact, robots who can help you choose your clothes. It's just short video to demonstrate this.
Show me skirts. Show me blue.
So this technology already exists in many stores. In Europe, this one in Russia, and it will be more and more accessible around the world. Coming to also design students, how they work on their installations, on their designs. And another thing which is already quite popular is 3D printing. So here you can see an example of a project of a student's design in fashion, where they can do it in 3D. the process of 3D printing. And coming to the next topic, fine arts. So we have a fantastic institute campus in Florence, which is the world capital for fine arts. For those students who are keen for painting, sculpture, modern art, art technology, sound technology. So they have great careers open for them. So it's not only just the traditional subjects that were discussed earlier in this morning. Students can really experiment and expose with technology, with artificial intelligence, to come out with the new future, the new tomorrow. Here you can see how education also will be forced to change, to adapt to this new technologies. So it's not only for students, but also for faculties, for management of schools, colleges, institutions, to adapt to these new technologies which are coming, which will be more easier, will be more practical, will be more interactive, will be more interested where different subjects which are not covered or very hard to adapt to can be also adapted. So fine arts would play a very important role in exploring different forms of creativity, right from the traditional to the modern. And then coming to especially Italianness, that's what Marangoni is famous for. How, though they say artificial intelligence will take off the world, it will not be complete. It have to be a blended. The balance will have to be maintained. And that's when is important the human touch, the human aspect. And when schools like ours are very unique, very deep in their didactic plan of their character. The Italianness is one character which is unique, which is something that cannot be compromised. Same thing like our Indianness, our culture, which will play a very, very important role in maintaining that balance. Okay, technology is only something you can do up to technology. But the human element will always be there. And this is what we have to learn, how to blend both. This is one of the most famous fashion shows of Dolce & Gabbana. where aesthetics, beauty, that will still be very strong with, and here coming to not only now design, coming to the classroom, whether it's your science students, whether your commerce students, what will be the future of your classrooms in your schools and colleges and institutions. So as a design student, you're also working in creating these facilities for classroom sessions. Already there are some institutions which have adapted to this technology and are experimenting with this. So the hands-on experiential learning, this is where AI will play a vital point in coming in, making teaching and learning so much more practical, interactive. And that's what's more important, the interaction between students and their teachers, between students and industry. So it's not only limited to classroom, but also the lab. So the quality of online learning will improve. So students do not have to be shy, students and especially parents, because many have a problem with online learning. E-learning is no less than the classroom experience, and we have to build it up to there. In fact, it's going to enhance. It will require more investment. It will be a little more expensive initially, but that is how we'll take it forward. And then coming also back to our school, Marangoni, our own Marangoniness, how we blend the two. Because in design, AI and graphics play a very important role. But then, as I earlier mentioned, the blend of both, the human aspect is also very important. And Marangoni stresses on that, the balance of both. So all students learn graphic design, learn a bit of artificial intelligence, learn big data, learn analytics, but also the touch is very important. The texture, the human element, the culture, the aesthetics will have to be learned hands-on, one-to-one with the faculty. In creating uniqueness and a unique product for the market. And finally, I want to conclude by this saying, it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. As Usha ma'am was earlier speaking, that students who are got 80s and 90s and say, I'm useless. Yeah. So it's not this, but those who are adaptable to change. And we have to adapt in this moment to go forward and push forward, not hide in our homes, but face this challenge that is currently over us through new eyes, through new innovation, through a very positive attitude. So thank you very much for your attention. And I hope this was helpful to end this beautiful session. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer at this moment.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rao. It was wonderful. And the way you give us such beautiful audio videos to look at, I feel like joining one design school myself. So thank you so much. It was wonderful having you. And Elmas, I think
Yes, Asta. It was really wonderful to see that interactive presentation from Rahul. And thank you, Asta. Thank you very much. You were really brilliant in the panel discussion, and you did a great job.
thank you all, my pleasure. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I had so much to learn and so much to share. And all the participants who have been attending this, I think, I mean, this is how we can utilize our time constructively, learn, at the same time share our views, discuss, which is the best part of all this situation we are all in, COVID-19. These are difficult times, but this is the positive way to look at it and deal with it by having all of us together at this platform. I think ICAE is doing a wonderful job connecting all of us for this kind of learning and sharing. Thank you, Almaz. Thank you, ICAE, for giving all of us such a wonderful opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Asta, for your kind words, and thank you, Rahul, for being here.
Thank you.
So I would like to conclude by thanking all our sponsors and especially our speakers who are there since morning with us, and especially all the attendees for patiently listening to everyone and participating in the question and answers. And it was also an honor for me to be among such accomplished individuals. I wish all of you a very good day ahead. Goodbye for now, and we will be back with a very good session for our Independence Day celebrations. So we'll be back with our one more session. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, Asta. Bye-bye for now. Stay safe, stay healthy.